Good afternoon. Julie Kay here in the Live Impact studio. It is 12:31 on your clock right now. We've got some really interesting stuff to get to, so stick with us. But of course, we're going to start with the beautiful day outside. We've actually had quite a bit of lovely weather, Carlene. It's
stunning.
The last bit. Oh my gosh. Not
That's
a cloud.
Are you a roller coaster person?
I am a roller coaster person.
Have you been to Carowinds yet?
No, I have not.
Girl, you got to go. It's great.
Well, I was going to say Scarowinds is really on my list. I love scary things.
Oh, yeah, then go to Scarowinds.
Right. I don't love when they chase you, but I think I can run fast enough that I'll be okay.
You know, they got in full costume. If you're just you can outrun them. You're fine. Scarowinds is great. If anybody needs a nice, good scare. Because it's scary.
Yeah, just don't make eye contact and maybe they won't bother you.
Yeah, right. For sure.
They can smell the fear. But beautiful last kind of potentially maybe last heat wave that we're kind of dealing with, for lack of a better term.
We say that now, but I've had hot Halloweens living here.
You know what? Let me knock on wood. I'm actually looking forward to some chillier weather.
You're a fall girl?
I'm a fall girl. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love the heat here. I came from Michigan, so I won't complain about the heat.
But
I
love the fall.
It is beautiful, yes. But enjoy the nice weather while you can. I know we've got this Lake Norman here. Ooh, that's pretty too.
Splash. I just want to be out there. That's what we should be doing.
I know.
Should be here.
Live Impact from a boat.
I've been pitching it. You know, I've been trying to get boat friends. I finally have a boat friend.
Oh, you
I'm
do?
Supposed to go on the boat tomorrow. I hope it, I really hope it happens so I could just rub Nick Sturban's face in it.
Is your boat friend looking for other friends?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
My boat friends, it was a friend I had, and then they acquired a boat.
Oh, you inherited into
I inherited
your grandfathered in to
right.
the boat
So
friend.
It makes it even better. It's not like I just sought out this person because they had a boat.
Like I would be doing.
A nice plus now that they're a friend that has a boat.
We'll take that.
Let's go to weather, shall we?
Yeah, take that, Nick Sturban.
That, Nick Sturban. That's right.
We've got Majestic Storm here. Let's take a listen.
Setting the tone for a beautiful but yes, kind of hot Friday. Now it kind of actually looks like fall is beginning right here. This is App State out there in Boone. Look at those colors on those trees. Absolutely gorgeous. Each day they just keep getting brighter and brighter. Now I don't know if you can top this though. Look at Dallas. I see you. You're looking good right now. A whole lot of sunshine. Temperatures are continuing to rise though. Near 90 degrees. You guys, it's not just today but tomorrow as well. So if you have plans today, maybe you're heading out to the lake. I'll tell you that's the place to be. It's going to be absolutely perfect for that. But tomorrow, still watch for a stray shower or two. I mean, really the chances over the next couple of days, they're not looking that good, but they're not zero. We're concerned about our drought because we really need some rain. It's starting to get very, very dry, and we are, of course, keeping a close eye on the tropics for you because we have our next named storm. Let's get to those current temperatures right now for your lunchtime forecast. I mean, look at this. Upper 70s, low to mid 80s. Lancaster, I see you, 88 degrees. Almost 90 degrees right now, and we're not even done warming up. Again, yesterday we topped off at 88. The average high for this time of the year is 83 here in Charlotte, so above average temperatures yesterday, 90 degrees today, and it's not just the heat, but it's also that humidity. Here's the temperatures over the next 10 days, so hot today, hot tomorrow. By Sunday, near normal, mid 80s, and then on Monday, still warm. I mean, about 84 degrees, so it's not cool, but it is going to be cooler than what we're experiencing today. And then finally we'll hit those upper 70s, but we're always looking at trends every single day for what's coming next in our weather pattern. And really across the country, we're going to be finishing out the month of September with those above average temperatures, even across the entire Carolinas. That takes us all the way into next week, with September 29th being the day that we're going to continue to see those very, very warm temperatures. But as far as the rain goes, you can see isolated chances today and tomorrow, so it's not a 0% chance, but only about a 20% chance, and then things dry out. Now yesterday we did get our updated drought monitor, and many of us are now abnormally dry. That's what this yellow is indicating. Not that we're in a drought, but things are definitely getting dry. Parts of the Carolinas shaded in that tan there. Right now we're in that moderate level drought. Satellite and radar though, look at this. Beautiful blue skies and sunshine as we're heading into our Friday, really all across the Carolinas. And then by tomorrow, a 20% chance for a stray shower. So you know how that is. Most of us, we won't see anything, but I think a couple of people could. So we're going to keep it in there. And then as we wrap up our weekend and head into next week, not looking too bad. Next week, we could have some better rain chances. Let's slow things down. I'm going to walk you into our futurecast. So here's about 3 o'clock this afternoon, still mostly sunny skies. We'll have a few high clouds sneak in here and there, and then whenever we're seeing just those little pockets of greens right there, that's where we could see a little bit of rain popping up. I don't think we'll have any storm activity or anything like that, so if you have dinner plans outside tonight, should be nice, a little on the warm side. Maybe you want to take the kids and you want to go out on the greenway. It's going to be warm but beautiful afternoon to do that. Now here's the latest. Tropical Storm Gabrielle. This is our 11 a.m. advisory. Still continuing to move northwest at 12 miles an hour. Sustained winds 50 miles an hour, but gust up to 65. So it is still a tropical storm. It'll likely stay a tropical storm until next week. That's when we could have our next hurricane. And then we also are watching this next wave that could also become our next named storm over the next 7 days. National Hurricane Center has it as a 20% chance. Anyways, here's our 7-day forecast. It's beautiful as we're heading into the weekend. Panthers are at home on Sunday, mid-80s, and then the first day of fall will be on Monday with a high of 84.
Can't really complain about that beautiful weekend that we've got coming up, especially if you're going to the Panthers game. Carlene, I know this is the home opener.
Home opener against the Falcons. And we'll be transparent here on Live Impact News.
That's what
I'll
we
pull
strive to
myself
do.
up.
Thank you.
Julie and I are not Panthers fans. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm staring directly at the camera. I'm so sorry.
We're happy for them.
I'm so happy for you. I'm kind of like, I like the Panthers. I want them to do well.
Yes.
But we are not Panthers experts by any means.
And I just, overall, I'm not a football expert.
Sure.
So I just kind of go with the flow.
We appreciate honesty here.
But I do love the spirit of the game.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm very excited that
Tailgating's
they'll be in
great.
Charlotte.
Yeah. We're here for it. You know who is Panthers? A big Panthers fan?
The man we were just making fun of, Nick Sturdivant.
It's easy to make fun of them.
I know.
Nick Sturdivant and Eugene Robinson, they are great.
So
they are the experts.
Let's
so why
take
are
it
we
to
talking?
them.
Yeah.
They know more.
They know more. This is their weekly special. If you are a frequent watcher of WCNC Plus, you know that this airs on Thursdays at 9. But hey, in case you missed it last night, in case you were busy, we got it right here.
And this is good for me too.
Right. Now we'll all learn.
To learn.
All right, here we go.
All right, welcome back to week 3, episode 3 of the Bald Brothers Panther preview. I got my guy in here, Eugene Robinson. We were talking, man. My blood pressure's high right now, man. I don't know. I need the doc to check it because
I can see some sweat coming from the top of your head, brother.
You see it? How are you doing after 2 weeks of watching the Panthers play?
Yeah, I tell you what, it was very, very tough. I thought the first game was a tough one. I thought the second game in the first half was crazy. It was so uncharacteristic for what I thought they would be able to go ahead and go ahead and be. And it was, I mean, if you really think about it, if the Cardinals don't have those 12 penalties, what they had, they end up blowing the Panthers out.
They
wanted
the Panthers to win the game.
Absolutely. Because towards the end, now when the Panthers, and to our credit, we came back that second half, came back, boom. There was a lot of mistakes on the other side of the ball that helped us to go ahead to continue drives and things of that nature. So we were good. When you have a turnover in the first half, if it's at least a touchdown, if it's an interception, it's any type of big play. Don't forget we had the strip fumble for a touchdown and an interception. It changes things. It changes your psyche. It changes what you think. And getting off to a bad start really hampers you, and it's hard to overcome interception or fumble, let alone an interception or fumble for a touchdown. Hard to overcome that.
Let's dive into week 3. So the Panthers back in the bank, week 3 against a division rival, the Falcons. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know the Falcons on defense, and they drafted high on defense in the draft, if they're that good or if Minnesota's that bad, but that's besides the point. What is the disconnect? You know what? Let me not start with Bryce. Let's start with the guy that we just talked about before we got on the stream, Xavier Legette. You spoke with Dave Canales, Coach Canales. Is it time to bench X? Because he's not being productive right now. The eye test, I'm sorry, Carlene, University of South Carolina guy, but he's not being productive.
No, Coach Canales has spoken to the press about XL and also the team. They have his back, all right? Because this is what we know from just being a player. every player kind of goes through a slump, and you're looking to kind of get out of that slump.
Yeah.
Now, if we all pour on you, you ain't getting out that slump. All right, so I get what he's doing, and I get why he's behind him, because he is a talent. There's no doubt about that. He's a talent. He has incredible size, 6'3", 220. Dude, he's going to run you over. He's going to do all that stuff. But it hasn't materialized. And those 10, 12 targets with only -2 yards, it doesn't look good, right? And his play doesn't look good. But here it is. That really is right here in your head.
Yeah.
And now, what does Coach Canales is trying to do? And this is what I applaud him for. And this is just real talk here. This is what I applaud him for. I applaud him for he's standing behind him, because if he doesn't stand behind him, who's going to feel that first? It's going to be Leggett. Who's going to go ahead and maybe get down in the dumps even more? It's going to be Leggett. So how do you get out of that? You have your number one guy, the head coach, go like this: hey, dude, I believe in you. I believe in you. And so that is the formula how you get a guy who's maybe not playing well to play well. And don't forget, coach is going to still target him. So not only is he going to put his money where his mouth is, I mean, what he say, he's going to back it up, because he's going to target. He's going to put him in situations to go ahead to get him to rock and let him flourish. And so from that standpoint, coach is behind him. So I'm a player, and I know how guys get in slumps. And for that way to how you get out of the slump, you got to have people rally behind you. It's not enough for you going, I'm going to do better. I'm going to stay after this, that. But when I know that, man, you believe me? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. I know that you believe in me. And I know that, Bryce, you can throw me the rock. I'm not going to drop it. Bryce, I'm going to get my foot down. Bryce, I got you, Bryce. I got you. Just throw me the rock. All right? Do you believe in me? Yeah, I believe you. I'm going to throw you the rock. That's what you want to happen.
He believes. I watching the games, I can see Bryce believes in Teterow McMillan, because he's been balling the past couple of games. He even believes in a guy, Bryson Tremaine, number 87, was out there catching some big balls. Hunter Renfrow is there. He's making plays.
And don't forget Sanders.
Jatavian Sanders played a good game against the Cardinals. I guess for me, how do we get to a faster start? Because this has been the theme with Coach Canales and the team. What are you seeing? My eye test, and I'm not a player. You are a former player. They don't look prepared. But what are you seeing? Why are they getting off to these slow starts?
So, first of all, in the game against the Cardinals, the offensive line, all right, so they got beat on the offensive line, and so now Bryce, people talking about, man, he fumbled the ball.
Yeah.
Dude, you're going to somebody's going to dislodge the ball from you if you don't see that coming from the backside. Yeah. And then you feel it, and you're trying to escape it, and you're trying to get out the way. So, first of all, it starts with the offensive line.
Okay.
It always starts with the offensive line.
The interior is beat up?
It's beat up, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget, Corbett's out, Hunt is going to be out. Savalas goes in. Cade Mays is going to be probably handling the center duties.
Which they did play a little bit better with Cade Mays.
They did. Towards the end of the season, they played really well. Yeah. Bryce played really well with Cade. So you got that. But it doesn't excuse the offensive line, if you will, because that's where it starts. That's why we're trying to breach the offensive line. That's why we do blitzes. That's why because the offensive line is that formidable, having the two guards, the two tackles, the center, and that tight end down there, and then you got a back in the backfield, and maybe a fullback or another tight end in there. There's a lot to breach. There's a lot to go through. And so it starts with the offensive line. So I'm going to put it on first, not only on the receivers, because you can't give them to throw the ball to the receivers yet to run a route. It has to start with the offensive line. And that line is beat up, but that line with the people they have coming in, they have tons of game experience to go ahead and to not have a breach. And that's what I'm expecting. And that's what Coach Canales is expecting. I'm like, dude, how do you stop a slow start? Offensive line, you got to protect. You got to protect.
And Eugene, I guess, provide some context for us. The first 10 plays are sort of scripted, right?
Every offense, typically, and I learned this from Mike Holmgren, they're going to have the first 25 to 20 plays scripted.
Yeah.
Done. So when they're running it off, they're looking at situations and sets of like, okay, if we got here, boom, we're doing this, we're doing this, and so that's why they when they do their calls, they cover their mouth so they don't want you to read lips and all that type of stuff and whatnot. So they do all that stuff, but it's pretty much set.
Okay.
So when you start the game, you already know what you're playing. You already know what you're doing. So now it comes down to, and this is what football comes down to, me against you. I don't think you can stop me. I don't think if I blitz and I hit the A gap right there, and if you're looking at me straight up, that you're going to be able to block me. I don't believe you can block me.
The Panthers were terrible against the blitz versus the Cardinals. I want to read off a stat just to get kind of give you guys.
Go ahead.
Yep, through 2 weeks, Atlanta ranked. I'm talking about the Falcons right now. The Atlanta ranked second in yards allowed and pass defense and points allowed. I mean, they're only giving up like.
You said Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yes, that's right.
They're only giving up 14.5 points. Atlanta. While sitting 5th in sacks. Again, I don't know if that defensive line is that legit because we're only 2 weeks into the season, but I mean.
Okay, so let's get into the mind of what the Falcons would be thinking.
Okay.
Because coming off, this is one thing that we know about winning. Winning is contagious. Losing can be also contagious.
Yeah.
And when you're winning and you have the stats that they are both on the rushing stats and on the passing stats, I think 149 and maybe, I don't know, 87 yards, something like that, whatever, 81 yards rushing. When you get building those stats, they're coming into Bank of America Stadium going like this, hey, the Carolina Panthers are floundering. What are they going to mostly do? They're going to try to run the ball. So what we're going to do, we're going to get in the 8-man front, and we're going to show you that we're the real deal, and we can stop the run. Because if we stop the run, we're going to be able to get to that pass.
Yeah.
So that's what they're going to be thinking because they've already stopped the run. They've already done it. So when you already done it, you go ahead and say, oh, and another team is floundering, you go, oh, all right. Your confidence gets up. And so that's what they're going to be doing. They are confident based on their defense, not based on the fact that the opponents they play and whether they were good or bad.
Right.
That's not it. This is what we did to this opponent.
Yeah.
And we stopped them. And we limited the yards, passing game and rushing. Now what? That's what they're thinking. That's confidence.
And Atlanta Falcons, I have to point out, they have invested a lot in their defense. They drafted Jalen Walker, guy who we thought was coming to Carolina.
I thought he was coming to Carolina.
I'm not mad at Taylor McMillan.
No, but I'm not mad at McMillan. So let's make it tell the truth. You had two studs, if you will.
Yeah.
I never saw the T-Mac thing happening because I was thinking about Jalen Walker.
Yeah, same.
I'm going, we got to get Jalen Walker. Yeah, we got to get Jalen Walker.
Guy.
Yeah, this is going to be great. But getting T-Mac, man, I tell you what, Coach Canales and Dan Morgan, well done. Well done, because that dude is the real deal.
Hey, he is the real deal.
Real deal.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here on the Ball.
All right, we are going to take a quick break as well and come back with some more Panthers information. I'm learning a lot, Carlene. This is good for me. 12:48 on the clock. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, we are back. It is 12:51. We're going to hop back into the Panthers conversation about the home opener this Sunday with Nick and Eugene. Let's take a listen.
Welcome back here on the Ball Brothers Panthers preview. I'm with my Ball brother.
You know that's right.
And Carlene.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Yeah.
I'm here. I'm holding it down.
Carlene is here. We're talking about the Panthers. We talked about the offensive side of the ball, how the Panthers can get off to a better start. Let's talk defense. All right. I want to say defense because Bijan Robinson has just been a thorn in the Panthers' side. He rushed for 143 yards last week. 170 against the Panthers in Week 18 last season. I don't know if you remember that, Eugene, but he lit it up. I know we got the win, but he lit it up, man.
Dude, I don't know if his name is Bijan.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm telling you, that dude is a generational talent.
Yeah.
The way he runs the ball, and he reminds me a little bit of like a Eric Dickinson type. With that size that he has and that ability to go ahead and cut, but also has the power of a Derrick Henry to run you over if he decides to run you over. That dude is that he's all that.
Because I've heard the Marshall Faulk comparison.
Yeah, but he's not as Marshall Faulk was smaller.
Yeah, he was small. Yeah,
he's a small dude with that quickness. Boom. You know, Marshall Faulk. When I think of the Faulk, I think of Thurman Thomas. I think of Barry Sanders. I think of that type of player. Bijan is like, dude, I'm not trying to tackle that dude, man. Dude, he got size. When you have size on you as he does, and you have that speed, and then that vision, peripheral vision, to hit the hole, to run around you, or to run you over. Dude, I'm telling you, that's why he's going to give anybody troubles. He had 143 yards last week, dude, and he can make it look easy. Yeah, because he can break it at any time.
And that Vikings defensive line, especially, is no slouch. They have issues on the offensive side of the ball, but on defense, they're not bad. I do want to ask you, as a free safety, how do you contain? Because we're seeing the emergence of a guy like Kyle Pitts at tight end. We have Darnell Mooney. And Drake London.
You got Pitts, London, Moody's back in the mix.
Our secondary, man. How do we? Mike Jack and J.C. Horn playing phenomenal. Two best corners so far, week 2.
Playing well.
But our safety play.
Safety play. I think that's going to really fall on Maury. He's going to have to go ahead and don't forget, you got a couple of dudes that's sitting in the cut. Ransom and Damari Richardson.
Okay, but before you go on, should we play that young guy Ransom more? Because I feel like he shines more than a guy like Nick Scott.
So typically what happens is this: a guy gets hurt, or got beat up just a little bit, and then you see Ransom come in, or you see Damari Richardson come in the game, and then you're like this. Now the coach is like, I gotta play you. All right? So now they gotta go ahead and play you because you balling out. Yeah. And now they don't want to mess up the chemistry and what's the name. Yeah. That's how I kind of got my start. Yeah. They gotta play you now. You balling. What are they gonna do? Ransom and Damari Richardson are two guys that could be starting anywhere in this league on any other team. I'm just telling you.
1,000%.
I'm just telling you. I fell in love with Richardson play last year going, dude, who's this dude right here, man? And why is he always around the ball? And why is he a good tackler? This dude's always around the ball. And then when I saw Ransom in preseason, I saw him come up and smack him, man. I was like, oh, my goodness, who's this dude? And I'm thinking of this, right? I'm like, if I'm Maury and I'm Scott, I'm sitting there going like this. Hold up, dude. I better be on my P's and Q's because these cats right here, these cats can ball. And that ain't no lie. Them two dudes right there can ball. And all they need is an opportunity. Yeah. And typically how you get your opportunity on special teams, or a guy gets hurt on a couple of plays and you have to go in and replace him. Yeah. That's why I see that happening. Yeah. Because don't forget, I went and picked up Maury. I went and got that dude, so I'm gonna go ahead and have to play him because I believe in him, and I got to go ahead and give him a chance to learn the system and all that stuff. I gotta invest in him, so I just can't take. And don't forget, Scott is a guy from Coach Ajero.
Yeah, he's this guy.
Yeah, he's that guy. So I see why. So typically, as those dudes wait their time and bide their time, typically when you get in the game, you get in the game because somebody got hurt.
I mean, defense did play better this week. We were on last week. We were on Evero's head last week.
Yeah, I know. They played much better.
They played much better. I do want to ask.
And they stopped the run. One thing they had to stop the run because they weren't good about it. They stopped the run. They did a good job of stopping the run.
Under 100 yards, I believe.
Yes, they did.
Which broke, I believe it was a 7-8 game record, 200 yards, which was
yes, it was
ridiculous.
crazy.
I do want to point out, you mentioned this. I got to give you credit. The young guys, Princely, Nick Scorton, Pat Jones is a new young guy. What did you see from those guys? Because you talked about it week one. We need to see more of the young, new guys.
They're
they
hungry.
Stepped up.
They are hungry. I'm telling you. And I can see why, because I think there's a thing that's of our defensive front. Mm-hmm. I know the front interior linemen. I don't know the linebackers. Wallace, Roseboom. You try to figure out.
I know why you don't know them, DJ.
I know why.
Because they're not making any time.
Because they're not making any plays, right? But now think about if you Prince. Think about you like this.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, if I get in, I'm about to go ahead and murder this.
One sack.
I'm about to go ahead and put some work in. Mm-hmm. That's what I think is wide open. Mm-hmm. I think what's wide open is, like I said this last year about the receivers. I'm like, man, I'm waiting for one of these receivers to take control.
Yeah.
Well, who's going to go ahead and eat?
Yeah.
You could be the dude.
Yeah.
You could be that cat, right? I was looking for the guy. You could be that dude. Be that guy, right? Thielen was hurt. Who's going to be that guy that says, oh, I'm waiting for this to go ahead and shine, right? I'm waiting to see what's going to be that linebacker. And I think it's going to come from that young group.
Oh man, Princely, I saw him out there, and I said, "He was right."
Yep, that dude,
right.
He got some skill, and he showed up in preseason too. He played well in preseason.
He was playing. Was he playing a little bit of outside linebacker?
He played some outside linebacker.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if his hand was in the ground.
Yeah, and so with our 3-4 system, boom, you take it out. Oh, then also if we run to a 4-2, when we get into that little nickel package, we'll have two linebackers in the middle. So he's a guy that you should be thinking of because now Rosebloom, he had 6 missed tackles so far this season. Six this season, Eugene. Dude, I know. And if one of the ones that were really costly, the one with Kyler Murray, he ran for like 30 yards or something. I'm like, man. And here it is, because he's young, right?
Yeah.
And he don't know. Yeah. When you're blitzing the quarterback and you're coming up through the A gap and you know that there's no way for that guy to go,
right? What
you do when you're running at him, you slow down. Okay. You don't keep running at him and try to knock him out. Yeah. You just try to make the tackle. See, what you're trying to do is, I'm about to let this dude up, and you're about to knock him out. But all he has to do is like a little move, because once you define what lane you're going and the path you're taking, if he deviates from that path, you're going to miss him. Yeah. So what you do is, when you're going to the quarterback, is that you're running fast, but then you gauge it down so that if I have to go ahead and break left or right, I can do it. And then what you do is, you don't jump in the air, you just put your hands up and put your hands up. So if he throws it, my hands might hit him, but don't jump in the air, because if he fakes and you jump, he gets you off your feet, he's going to run around you. Yeah. So there's some things that you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't do some of those things. And
he obviously did not watch the Julius Pepper highlights, because Julius Pepper was really great at tracking down the quarterback, not being fooled by the pump fake.
And you know what? You just got to slow it down. I like his effort, but you blitzing through there. You just in your mind just slow it down so that you can make a cut, because the quarterback ain't going to just stand there.
Right. Before we go to break, I got to ask you, man. I am liking what I'm seeing between Mike Jack and J.C. Horn.
Love it.
What are you seeing out there, man? They locked up a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., who we thought was going to have.
Dude, you thought he was going to have he was that guy that everybody's talked about last year. But okay, this cat, he's the dude. He's that cat, right? And I was like, quite honestly, I was kind of scared, going, oh, man, dude, man, if he lines up on, who's going to line up on him? What side he goes to, who's going to take him, right? It doesn't matter. Yeah. Because they just played him well. They got in his face. They played him well. I'm going, dude, I'll take that.
I think there was an end zone pass where Mike Jack broke it up. I was like, was that Mike Jack?
That's Jack.
Okay.
He broke up the end zone pass. And don't forget, Coach Everett, what he did was he actually blitzed more with that 6-man package, getting to the quarterback. The quarterback has to get the ball out of his hand. That was also another thing because last week they picked up the blitz.
Yeah.
This week there's a guy in the face. Now Kyler Murray, you got to get rid of the route.
Man, oh man, they're going to have their hands full with a guy like Drake London. He's been in the league for a few years now, but I believe in Mike Jack. I believe in J.C. Horn. I believe in Shaw Wade Smith, or Shaw Smith.
Yeah, so
I always mix it up. My brain. My bad, guy. I'm sorry.
I know, but he's good.
He's good.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break. I want to get into some quick hitters after the break. We're going to step aside for a little bit. You're watching the Ball Brothers Preview, Episode 3, Week 3.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here ourselves, and afterwards we've got some more local stories to get to. Our Miles Harris is standing by with an update on that shooting yesterday in the French Quarter around lunchtime, a fatal shooting there. He's got some updates live, and then we're going to head to a roundtable with former Governor and now Senate candidate Roy Cooper about Medicaid cuts, so stick with us. All right, we're coming back on. It is 1:04 on your clock with some more local updates. Our Miles Harris is live in Uptown following really one of the biggest stories of the last couple of days here. Miles' fatal shooting in Uptown yesterday during lunchtime. Police already have a suspect. I know he's in court today. What can you tell us?
Yeah, like you said, Julie, he's expected to be in court really within the next 30 minutes or so. But one of the things that we really wanted to follow up with today is, like you mentioned, just how popular this area, this alley is over here in Brevard Court, and just kind of catching a vibe to see really how much foot traffic we're used to seeing here, and if it's still there. As I step to the side here, you can kind of take a glance and see that not as much usual foot traffic as we're used to seeing in this area here, but we have seen a lot of people still make their way out here, whether it's coming out here for lunch, whether it's out here really actually looking to see more of what the aftermath from that scene looked like, though, too. So, again, a little bit more usual, that foot traffic, than we're used to seeing, but the thing that is different out here is that we're actually getting a different vibe in this area here. Still a lot of questions from people really asking what happened, what kind of led up to those shots ringing out here, too, because you mentioned it. This happened around 1:30, around the time that we're here now. So this is really typically around that busy lunch hour. So we're used to seeing more of that foot traffic. So a lot of questions when it comes to people and their safety in this area. But really when it comes to the foot traffic, when it comes to the people usually coming out here and frequent around this area, still seeing the still normal crowd. But again, just a lot of questions when it comes to the safety with this latest shooting incident and really one of the busiest, more popular areas here in Uptown, Julie.
Yeah, of course, Miles. And we've had multiple very public instances of violence in the past couple weeks. Have people mentioned just an overall increased sense of awareness because of all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, some of the people that we talked to here, we asked them, how would you feel would make more sense in being and enhancing that safety, I would say, in this area here. Some of the people were sitting there saying that, there need to be more of a police presence, more of a security presence. There's have to be more of an awareness when we're walking around this area, because not only are we talking about, Brevard Court, but just behind us here is the French Quarter, or not the French Quarter, but Romeo Bearden, and also the Knight Stadium as well. So this, a very, very popular area. So a lot of people, when we asked them, what are you going to do moving forward here, definitely have to enhance more of their awareness when it comes to their surroundings around this area though too, but they're also asking and hoping to see more of that security and police presence. Now we have been out here throughout much of the morning and really throughout much of the day though as well, and we have seen a couple of police actually patrolling this area here, whether it's related to that incident or whether it's related to really just the enhanced security that's needed around Uptown. We are seeing more of that, which is definitely a positive, and hopefully adding more of that security when it comes to that safety presence out here. But then again, Julie, still a lot of questions about the enhance and the increase when it comes to the shootings and the incidents and the crime that's really happened really throughout Charlotte here within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Miles, absolutely. This is kind of wrapped into a larger conversation about safety in Charlotte, especially those busy areas as we head into the weekend. And I know, like you mentioned, in the next 25 minutes or so, that suspect is going to be in court. Anything in particular you're paying attention to at that appearance, and anything we need to know about the suspect?
Honestly, not a whole lot. We did get the incident report that kind of mentioned that there was a bit of an argument that led up to that shooting. We know that the alleged suspect in this case mentioned that he felt like he was threatened for his life, which is why he actually led to shooting the victim in this incident. But just kind of hearing and learning more about this incident is really what we're keeping an eye on when it comes to that first court appearance. And obviously, we'll keep you updated when we get those details as well today, Julie.
All right, Miles Harris, thank you so much for following this for us. You can find him again at 4, 5, and 6. Miles, thank you. We are going to head to another break ourselves and then bring you back to some more local headlines. Stick with us. All right, welcome back. We're going to head to some national headlines first. I know we're waiting on that roundtable with former Governor Roy Cooper and Senate candidates now. So he's going to talk about Medicaid cuts. He was a big part of Medicaid expansion. That was supposed to start about 10 minutes ago, but we're waiting on that. While we wait, let's head to the CDC. I know they're doing a hearing on immunizations. Let's take a listen in.
Stratify by immunocompromise, and then either control or not for underlying conditions that are not immunocompromising.
Can I jump in a question on that one? The issue of immunosenescence, elderly condition is one of your risk factors. It's well known to be associated with immunosenescence, which is associated clearly with reduced vaccine immunogenicity and responsiveness. So are you telling me that elderly cohorts that are prone to immunosenescence respond just the same as younger cohorts to these products? Over?
No, when we refer to underlying medical conditions, we're not talking about age. We're talking about things like cancer, diabetes. We do separately stratify by age group, because as you say, we do know that older age groups may have immunosenescence. We generally recently have not had statistical power because of lower vaccine coverage rates to stratify above age 65. What we saw earlier in the pandemic when quite a bit higher, and we were able to stratify by 10-year age brackets above 65, is that we do see a drop-off in effectiveness happening around age 75, and that has led to recent recommendations for a second dose annually for those 65 and up who may have lower or may have more quicker waning.
Thank you for that.
Okay,
and Dr. Stein.
Questions, I think. One question, one comment. I'll skip one of my questions. In the vaccine safety signal and presentation, there was a table presented with a long list of adverse events of special interest. And I'm not sure this is a complete list, and so I guess it's a two-part question. One is, why was the analysis?
Come back out, because it looks like the CDC is having some issues on their end. Not sure why we were in space, Carlene, but we're going to come back to Earth. Some more local headlines. Yesterday, Governor Stein was here in Charlotte. Originally, he was here for a biotech conference at the Pearl, of course, big medical center here in Midtown. But he also had a press conference afterwards that I was able to go to, where he talked about new legislation being introduced potentially on Monday in response to the murder of Irina Zarutska. He also talked about the General Assembly and Helene funding. He said he requested more funding from the federal government. So this was a really, really interesting presser that's going to have some pretty immediate consequences if this all goes through as he plans. He also said he was meeting with the family of Irina Zarutska. I believe that happened last night. Of course, they didn't want any media there. That was private for the family. But still, it will be really interesting to see if that impacts how Governor Stein changes what he wants to do going forward in response. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Good afternoon. Last month, we experienced a heartbreaking tragedy here in Charlotte. Everyone joins me in mourning the loss of Irina Zarutska. By all accounts, she was a ray of light. She loved animals and art. She had tons of friends. Having come to our country from Ukraine in search of peace and a bright future, she learned English and found employment. She was making her life here and had such a bright future ahead of her until it was tragically and brutally taken from her. My heart goes out to her family, and from my conversations with her uncle, they've already begun to think of ways that they can honor her and keep other Charlotteans safe. I'll be meeting with them later today to express my condolences in person. No parent, no brother or sister, no one should ever have to experience that kind of trauma. Irina's murder brings up real concerns for people all over North Carolina about the safety of our communities. Everyone deserves to be and feel safe in their home, in their communities, on their way to work or school, in their daily lives. We can and must do more to make sure that we are protecting the people of North Carolina. I urged the mayor last week to surge law enforcement across the public transit system, and I'm grateful that she did. It's a good start, and we have to keep it up. With more public safety on trains and law enforcement in our communities, we can deter criminal activity, and we can start the work of rebuilding trust. We also have to take a close look at our pretrial system and make sure that it is protecting people. The Pretrial Integrity Act, passed by the Republican legislature with bipartisan support by a number of these legislators here today, signed into law by Governor Cooper in 2023, was a good start, and it shows that we can and we should continue to work across the aisle to make progress. We all know that having mental health issues does not equal violence. At the same time, to keep people safe, our judges and magistrates need better training and tools to respond when a defendant's mental health situation and history of violence may create real concerns for public safety. We need to institute mental health risk exams to determine whether those concerns pose a real risk to public safety and to give those people the right place to go for treatment. Of course, we have to have enough mental health practitioners to conduct these exams and enough healthcare facilities to respond to behavioral health needs. As we've seen, magistrates play a weighty and often overlooked role in the criminal justice process. They're working hard to make important decisions under difficult circumstances. In addition to making sure that they have the training that they need, we need to make sure that magistrates have a clear single supervisor who has authority over them through oversight. More accountability, including an unambiguous chain of command, published disciplinary processes, and common sense removal procedures will boost confidence in our system. Some pretrial decisions, such as those where there is a concern about a person's mental health and their history of violence, should be reserved for judges instead of magistrates to determine any release conditions. We also need to respond to mental health crises as effectively as we can. When law enforcement partners with trained mental health professionals to respond to a crisis together, we can better keep people safe, both the public at law and the individual involved. It also relieves pressure on law enforcement so that they have more time to respond to other public safety calls. I want to underscore, we need more well-trained law enforcement officers on the streets keeping us safe. I've been calling for raises for law enforcement for years. We ask them to put themselves in harm's way, and we frequently will express our appreciation to them verbally, and it is time that we put our money where our mouth is. Unfortunately, the General Assembly has not yet passed a full budget this year, but it is not too late to rectify some gaps that have been made painfully clear. In the absence of a full budget, but ahead of their return to Raleigh on Monday, I sent a letter to the leaders of the General Assembly urging them to fund 3 key investments immediately. Public safety is one of them. I continue to call on them to fund my $195 million public safety package. It provides pay raises and recruitment and retention bonuses for state and local law enforcement officers, increases co-responder teams, defends North Carolina's communities from community and school-based violence, creates a cold case unit to deliver justice to survivors of sexual assault, and a unit to combat the fentanyl and opioid crisis. These proposals are about keeping you and your families safe. Later, you'll hear from Kings Mountain Chief, Mr. Chief Gerald Childress. He's the regional director of the Association of Chiefs of Police. I also call on the legislature to appropriately value our public servants with salary increases, especially given the rising cost of living. That includes our teachers who recently started another school year without a pay raise. Our teachers are among the worst paid in the entire country. Yet they are the #1 in-school factor of our students' success. It is long past time that the state of North Carolina gave our teachers a real pay raise. I'm asking the legislature to raise teacher pay by an average of 5.9%, restore master's pay, and give all other school personnel a 3% raise. Soon you will hear from the chair of our State Board of Education, Mr. Eric Davis, who will lay out the needs that we are seeing. I am also calling on the legislature to give our state employees at least a 2% pay increase. We have a 20% vacancy rate across state government. This raise would help us to recruit and retain talented public servants providing important services to our people. Public safety and teacher pay are issues that we cannot keep kicking down the road. Neither is health care, and on health care, we are on the clock. If the legislature does not act on Medicaid by October 1st, the system will be at risk. In July, the General Assembly passed a bill that provided helpful support to the program, but unfortunately, it was not enough to fully fund it. Without additional funding, the Medicaid program will be forced to make painful cuts to the rates that it pays our healthcare professionals, because by law, the system cannot spend money that it does not have. So we find ourselves teetering on the brink of serious cuts. I do not want these cuts to come into effect, and I don't believe that the House or the Senate want these cuts to come into effect. I am confident that a solution exists, and I'm committed to working with our colleagues, both Democratic and Republican in the General Assembly, to achieve that solution. The Office of State Management, Budget and Management, and the Department of Health and Human Services, nonpartisan actuaries and economists project that we need $319 million to fully fund the program and protect critical health care services. DHHS and my administration have been in talks with legislators about how we can get more funding and avoid these damaging cuts. We will continue those good faith efforts to find a solution. If the legislature passes the full amount needed, we can avoid these cuts altogether. If the legislature appropriates a lesser amount, the amount recommended by its own Fiscal Research Division, DHHS can delay the cuts and work with the legislature on longer-term solutions to tackle the rising cost of health care. But the money needed to delay these cuts is needed now. It cannot wait until next month. If the General Assembly does not take action now, the cuts to people's health care and to essential health care providers will be devastating. Carolyn Allison, who's CEO of the Charlotte Community Health Clinic, will speak later about this devastation. I'm encouraged by the conversations we've been having with the legislature as recently as yesterday. There is a straightforward path to a clean Medicaid bill. I want to reiterate, I do not want these cuts to happen. I do not believe that the legislature wants these cuts to happen. So let's do the work this week and next to ensure that these cuts do not happen. Let's pass a fiscally responsible budget that makes the investments we need in this state, whether it's stopping the health care cuts, paying people what they are worth for the work that they provide our citizens, and making sure that people are safe and can go about their lives without fear. Thank you. I want to thank these legislators for being here and the hard work they do at the General Assembly on our behalf. And at this point, it's my pleasure to bring forward Chief Childress of Kings Mountain. Chief.
Thank you, Governor Stein, for the opportunity to be here today to speak on behalf of the North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police. Across North Carolina, communities large and small are facing growing crisis. Our police departments are struggling to fill vacancies, and the men and women who remain are stretched thinner every day. These vacancies don't just affect law enforcement, they affect the safety and peace of mind of every family in our state. The overarching problem, many police departments across the state, whether they're rural communities or towns, larger towns, are running short-staffed. Open positions remain unfilled for months, sometimes even years. The officers who remain are working long hours, often covering multiple shifts, just to ensure the basic services are met. While our officers are committed and dedicated, no amount of commitment can replace the need for adequate staffing. And this is where the real issue lies. This isn't simply a staffing problem, it is a public safety problem and touches every single person who dials 911 for help. When vacancies pile up, dangerous gaps appear. Response times to emergencies get longer, proactive policing cease to exist, and those efforts to prevent crime before it happens cannot do it. It takes back, and as officers are asking to do more with less, fatigue sets in. Tired officers are more likely to make mistakes, and burnout drives many to leave the profession earlier than planned. The consequences don't stop at slower response times. Vacancies hinder our ability to address violent crime, drug activity, and traffic enforcement. Victims may experience delays in investigations, which can feel like justice denied. And perhaps the most troubling, criminals pay attention. When they perceive the police presence is weakened, they feel emboldened. That perception alone puts communities at greater risk. This is just not a police problem, it's a community problem. It is a citizen problem, and it demands our attention. So what is the role of legislature? This is where the state leaders comes in. Public safety requires investment. If we want stronger, well-staffed police departments, the state must provide consistent, dedicated funding to recruit, retain, and train our officers. Competitive pay and benefits are not luxuries. They are necessities if we want to attract and keep good people in this profession. Just as important, officers need access to strong training, mental health resources, and modern equipment to allow them to do their jobs effectively. Public safety is not an option. It is not a side issue. It is a fundamental duty of government. And when government fails to support law enforcement, it fails its people. This is the moment for leadership. We need our legislators to recognize law enforcement vacancies across the state as an emergency. We need bipartisan support to fund local police departments and ensure that every community, from mountains to the coast, has the protection it deserves. When we invest in public safety, we invest in stronger families, we invest in safer neighborhoods, we invest in a North Carolina where businesses thrive, children grow, and citizens live without fear. So the time to act is now, because when it comes to safety, delay is dangerous and inaction is unacceptable. Together, let's call on our leaders to make public safety a priority for today and for the future in North Carolina. This time I'd like to turn it over to Chairman Davis.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for being here today and for being a champion for North Carolina citizens. We appreciate your leadership on these three critical issues that we face. And on behalf of my colleagues on the State Board of Education, we wholeheartedly support your proposal for paying state employees, particularly our teachers. And here's why. There's at least three universal truths about increasing teacher pay. First, there's only one profession upon which all other professions and all other lines of work rely upon, and that's the profession of teaching. So if you want a good mechanic, a good electrician, a good plumber, a good doctor, dentist, or nurse, invest in public school teachers, because that's where your doctors, mechanics, electricians are coming from. Second, plays out in every time we make a purchase, whether you're buying a new set of shoes, going to a meal in a restaurant, or going to the grocery store. We get what we pay for. Increasing teacher pay will ensure that we have the opportunity to recruit and retain the high-quality professional teachers that your children, our children, deserve. And third, I haven't met a parent yet who is satisfied with anything less than the best for their children. They certainly don't want their child's teacher to be worried about making the next mortgage payment or having to work 2 or 3 jobs, as so many of our teachers have to do just to survive on the paltry pay they're paid today. No, they want what's best for their children, and so do we. That's why we're determined to make North Carolina the best it can be, based on creating the best schools in the nation. And a critical step in that regard is to pay teachers a competitive wage, which enables us to compete for their talents against all the other opportunities that our state offers. You know, the past year, our terrific public school teachers enabled our students collectively to increase their academic achievement on 12 of the 15 end-of-year tests that we administer each year. They also enabled our teachers and our students to achieve the highest graduation rate in our state's history. Our teachers are worth investing in. And so we applaud the governor, we support this effort, and we call on the General Assembly to meet the needs of North Carolina's communities and citizens. Investing in public school teachers is the best investment you can make in North Carolina. And I'll turn to Mrs. Allison.
I'm sorry. I had to. I had to. I know. It's like, amen to that. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Governor Stein, for having me out here. My name is Carolyn Allison, and I have the honor of serving as CEO of the Charlotte Community Health Clinic, a federally qualified health center here in Charlotte. I'm also the board chair for the North Carolina Community Health Center Association. Community health centers and Medicaid are celebrating its 60-year anniversary. Let me repeat that, its 60-year anniversary. Started together in 1965 during the war on poverty, etc. Community health centers are the largest primary care system in North Carolina. At Charlotte Community Health Clinic, we provide medical, dental, behavioral health, and pharmacy services to thousands of families across Mecklenburg County. No matter their insurance status, if they're on Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, or their ability to pay. If you're uninsured, please come, you can come. We have like a sliding scale, and that's all community health centers. We are proud to be part of North Carolina's network of 43 community health centers, or some know us as federally qualified health centers, or FQHCs. FQHCs here in North Carolina are serving 800,000 patients in 92 counties and at more than 700 sites. Also, 1 out of every 10 rural North Carolinian gets their care from a community health center. 1 out of every 10 rural North Carolinians get their care from a community health center. So we're everywhere, guys. The community health center model is a simple one and powerful. Coordinated, comprehensive medical care and keeps people healthy, prevents unnecessary ER visits and hospitalization, and lowers overall cost for the state. But that model is at risk. On October 1st, unless the General Assembly finalizes the Medicaid budget rebase, a 3% cut to provider reimbursements will go into effect. For community health centers like ours, that is not just a number on a page. It threatens access to care for Medicaid patients and for all North Carolinians. Just last month, a young mother came to our clinic with her 2 children. Thanks to Medicaid expansion, she was able to have her care covered and the care of her children covered. Without stable Medicaid funding, families like hers are risking losing this lifeline. And that's something very important. North Carolina community health centers are already operating on razor-thin margins. Medicaid reimbursements are what allows us to keep our doors open and maintain our workforce and provide integrated services like dental, behavioral health, and pharmacy services. Cuts mean longer wait times in the doctor's office, fewer services, and fewer staff. And the impact ripples across the system. Our patients also rely on hospitals, nursing homes, dentists, and specialists who face the same cuts. So I'm not just here talking about community health centers, because obviously it's a system of care. So our patients are dependent upon the entire system. Here in Mecklenburg County, more than 340,000 people, nearly 1 in 3 residents, are enrolled in Medicaid. Thanks to expansion, more people than ever before are finally getting the health care they've gone without for years. We cannot afford to turn back the clock on this. We just can't. We are deeply grateful to Governor Stein, Speaker Hall, President Pro Tem Berger, and the legislative leaders in both chambers for recognizing the urgency of this issue and for supporting more funding, not less, for Medicaid providers. We know there is a consensus to prevent these cuts. Now let's just get it done. North Carolina Medicaid provides affordable health care to more than 3 million children, older adults, people living with disabilities, and other working adults. And over 650,000 could lose that lifeline. I urge the House and Senate to come to an agreement quickly before October 1st. Our patients, our providers, and our community are counting on all of us. Thank you for this time. Appreciate it.
Morgan, can you fix this microphone, please?
This question. While we, I'm gonna let you fix it. While we wait, there's a lot of y'all, a little bit of time. So as folks will say your name, your outlet, try to get everybody's question, but I can't guarantee that, but just, be kind to each other. And if you repeat the question so everybody can hear them.
Sure.
Andy Weber with Queen City News. Based off a press conference last week, do you think that the state should resume executions, the death penalty here in North Carolina?
The death penalty is a serious penalty that should be reserved for those who commit truly heinous crimes. It is the law of the land in North Carolina, and there are some lawsuits where the courts have been holding it up, and we have to go through that legal process.
Should they resume it?
Consistent with whatever the courts order, of course.
Alexandria Sands with Axios. I just wanted to ask, what have conversations been like with those leaders, Berger and Hall, if you've had any, and how are you feeling about what they're proposing?
They've been very constructive conversations with the leadership and the appropriations chairs. I genuinely believe that neither chamber wants these cuts to go into effect. They have differences of approach, they have differences of priority, but we need to get this done. We cannot allow our differences to get in the way of providing health care to North Carolinians and ensuring that the professionals who provide that care get adequately compensated.
Dedrick Russell with WBTV. What have you heard about the federal government coming here to do a subcommittee meeting talking about violence, and we all know about National Guard going into cities. What do you know about that, and what is your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just know what I read in the paper, that there was some interest of a House subcommittee looking into the situation. What we need to have safe communities is to have more well-trained professional law enforcement officers in our communities, proactively policing. When they're out and about, criminals don't act. So what I want to see is more well-trained officers. We don't need soldiers on our streets. Let's use that money that's very expensive and actually apply it to making sure we have more law enforcement officers who can serve our community, deter crime, and hold those who commit crime accountable.
Yeah, how about the Illinois governor pushed back and National Guard did not go to Chicago. So what is your strategy, and have you had those conversations, and what would be your strategy to push back and not have that National Guard come to Charlotte?
Well, we're in the middle of hurricane season, and actually 2 or 3 weeks ago, had to deploy the National Guard out to the Outer Banks in advance of Hurricane Aaron. Fortunately, it was further offshore and didn't create widespread damage. But let's have the National Guard focus on what the job of the National Guard is. Let's not have them do law enforcement when we have law enforcement officers to do that work. We just need to pay them appropriately.
Casey Jones, WCCB News. The Mecklenburg County District Attorney expressed a gap in the system where he says that after a person is found mentally unfit to stand trial, they are often sent right back to the street. Where do the legislative priorities need to be in terms of mental health to make sure that those people don't end up back on the street?
It's very important that we have, for those folks who have clear mental health, psychoses, and a history of violence, that we have some test, some evaluation mechanism to determine what their risk is and then act accordingly. There are reforms that we can do to the involuntary commitment statute in North Carolina. Obviously, we don't want to deprive people of their liberty without thorough due process, but there are times when a person is a real risk to other people or to themselves where that is the appropriate resolution.
Republicans are blaming.
Can we stick to one question? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Governor Evan Donovan, WCNC Channel 9. I just want to follow up on that right there, because your proposals today and your initial tweet after when you first talked about Irina Zarutska's murder mentioned policing, but a lot of people, there was some criticism of that because this suspect was arrested at least a dozen times. Do you see this as more of a mental health issue? Do you plan to ask the legislature for more funding for state mental health facilities, for mental health care? And what changes specifically, since you just mentioned it, would you make to the involuntary commitment law?
Yeah, well, the issue has to do with when you have somebody who has been arrested for a crime, and the crimes that he was arrested for were misdemeanors later. Some of them were violent offenses, and he had sentenced to prison for one of those violent offenses, but it was for misusing the 911 system. But that person came before a magistrate, and it was clear that there were issues that needed addressing. If we had a mental health evaluation exam to see whether that person posed a risk, then the magistrate could have authority to preventative detain him to keep him from entering the community and causing harm.
But where would we send him, knowing that?
I mean, that's one reason why Medicaid is a part of this conversation, because a lot of our healthcare, mental health care services are provided through Medicaid, and we have to have a strong, robust healthcare system that serves both people's physical needs but also people's mental health needs. And so going backwards on Medicaid is exactly the wrong direction when we need to go forward and provide more health care to people in need.
Governor Stein, Julie Kay with WCNC Charlotte. Our local government here at the city and county level has been criticized for how long it took to respond and put some safety precautions in place on the train system. What's your response to how the local government has responded?
Yeah. I think everybody wishes that we'd been more on our toes, and the local government had been more on its toes. I'm gratified that the local government has surged law enforcement and safety officials on the transit system. They've increased the number of people doing that work. They've also increased deployment of technology at the train station so they can use that to promote a sense of safety and security. I know that the local government cares deeply about this city. They care deeply about the people of the city. They're working hard to provide the best services they possibly can, to have the strongest, most vibrant economy with good paying jobs as they can. But every one of us in public life wants to do better, and I'm sure that they would say they want to do better.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, I'll let you have a
Republicans are blaming policies, specific measures like cashless bail and raise the age for the rise in violent crime. Are there any specific state laws that you believe maybe need to be reevaluated based on current crime trends in the state?
There was a bill that was passed a couple of years ago to look at pretrial release policies, and the legislature on a bipartisan basis strengthened those policies. I think we should review them and determine when you have the intersection between a crime that may not have been itself a violent crime, but you have a person who has a history of violence, to then have a different process for that person to make sure they don't slip through the cracks.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm so sorry you have to get to another meeting, but if you do have additional questions, as you know, you can email govpress@nc.gov.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Appreciate you being here.
All right, you just listened to a press conference from yesterday with Governor Josh Stein while he was here in Charlotte, originally speaking at a biotech conference. But then he held a press conference afterwards to talk about meeting the family of Irina Zarutska and potential legislation that the General Assembly is expected to file on Monday when they get back. I'm hearing from Republican legislators that that's going to look like more requirements for magistrates. But as you heard Governor Stein be asked, that could also include restarting the death penalty here in North Carolina. So a lot of big questions that we're hoping to find out on Monday, and it will be interesting to see how Democrats and Republicans come together. Governor Stein, of course, joined by multiple Mecklenburg County Democrats there at the press conference as he answered questions. Got some more local headlines to get to in a bit, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in a few minutes. All right, good afternoon. We are coming back on the air. It is 1:48 p.m. in the afternoon, and we're going to take another look back at that CDC hearing. I know that they're talking about immunizations and vaccines. We tried to get to it earlier, but they had some technical difficulties, so let's go ahead and give them another shot.
The basis of most of the informed consents in most states currently for vaccination does not necessarily, in its current form and the current way it's being administered, play that role or play an effective role to facilitate an appropriate informed consent. We feel very strongly that that should be addressed. And that kind of led to our recommendation that the CDC engages in effort to create more consistent and comprehensive informed consent processes. And as part of that, considers adding language accessible to patients and medical providers to describe the following risks and uncertainties. The first one is current assessments regarding the protection provided by COVID-19 vaccines and especially seasonal COVID-19 boosters against severe outcomes, for example, death, hospitalizations, and long COVID, are of low quality. At best, the additional protection provided by a seasonal booster is moderate and of short term. Second, there is evidence that repeated seasonal mRNA boosters cause acquired changes in the immune system and may be associated with increased vulnerability to future infections, including SARS-CoV-2 and other respiratory viruses. These risks, as well as potential risk of autoimmunity, chronic inflammation, immune tolerance, and impaired immune surveillance, including immune fatigue or suppression, are not currently well understood. Third,
There are documented deaths from symptomatic and subclinical myocarditis, pericarditis, and potentially other cardiovascular conditions post-COVID-19 vaccination, including of healthy children, with probable causal relationship to the mRNA vaccines. This risk is likely relatively small, but currently not well understood. Fourth, clinical reports demonstrate that in some cases, COVID-19 vaccines can cause prolonged and debilitating post-vaccine syndrome, PVS. The injuries associated with PVS involve diverse symptoms and conditions, many overlapping with long COVID injuries. Some of the observed symptoms and conditions may include insomnia, chronic pain and fatigue, dysautonomia, like POTS, immune dysregulation and deficiency, autoimmune disorders, severe neuropathy, and neurodegenerative conditions, cardiovascular and neurovascular injuries, and severe clotting. The frequency of PVS and related risk factors are currently not well understood. 5, there is evidence that in some individuals vaccinated with mRNA vaccines, the resulting spike protein, the mRNA, and the nanolipids formulation components persist in different body organs, including lymph nodes and the heart, for a prolonged period of months and possibly years in some patients. Prolonged and persistent exposure to spike mRNA and nanolipid particles is associated with post-vaccine syndrome injuries, as well as potentially other side effects that are currently only partially understood. 6, the safety and the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines during pregnancy have never been tested in appropriately powered randomized clinical trials. In one randomized clinical trial, there was observed numerical imbalance of higher number of babies with congenital malformations among those born to vaccinated women. Now, I just want to clarify the context here. We are not expecting the CDC to use this specific language, but we really encourage the CDC, both for the vaccine information statement as well as other communication channels, to find the right language to communicate these risks and uncertainties to patients and medical providers, so we can actually have the appropriate informed concerns and discussion of risk and benefits that are realistic to the current knowledge and the current gaps in knowledge that we currently face. The last thing I want to say is to talk a little bit about the guiding principles that we took in order to kind of recommend the specific policy recommendations about who should be vaccinated and what form. Our first assumption was we want to access within the authorized FDA population, especially. Benefits and risk and uncertainty must be communicated as part of informed consent. We debated mostly between individual-based decisions and group recommendations, and I think that the majority of the work group felt strongly, but in a second we'll hear the minority opinion as well. The majority of the group felt that individual-based decision is appropriate, and specifically we feel that these vaccines should now be prescribed as a prescription. And I want to say a few words about why. I think that there are two major reasons why. One is that when you try to quantify the risks and benefits, you very quickly, and we also already saw that in our discussion today, you get to a lot of nuance. Where you had prior infections recently, what is your immune response currently? What exactly are your comorbidities? How your comorbidities increase your risk for COVID versus risk from vaccination? We feel that this is too nuanced. And since we are not talking about now an emergency situation, we think that it's appropriate to bring it to something that is being discussed between a physician or medical provider and a patient as part of a prescription. Now, the other thing that causes to feel like that there is also nuances of what products to use, and also what are the uncertainties and how they're being communicated. And I think the flip side of that, there is kind of a lot of concern about access, because you just heard that, for example, many people take it in the pharmacy. I do want to respond to that. If you think about who is supposed to take those vaccines, these are people that presumably high risk, have health conditions, and take other drugs, other prescribed drugs. So they are by design, or currently are engaged with their physicians with respect to different prescriptions, with different care, with different diagnostic. And we don't feel that for those patients, it would be something unreasonable to expect that there will be a discussion around whether or not they should be taking a seasonal booster or new vaccines. As I said, there was a minority sentiment in the work group, and we're going to hear soon from three colleagues, Professor Bernstein, Professor Miglis, and Professor Perlman, that I truly appreciate their engagement in the work group. And while we did not agree on all the things, they were instrumental in driving the discussions in the group, in the work. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Bernstein, please.
Thank you. It's an honor to be presenting today, and we appreciate this opportunity to present our thinking. Doctors Perlman, Miglis, and I are sharing our reflections on the recent work group considerations. None of us have any conflicts of interest. Next slide, please. This slide demonstrates the simple, stable recommendations can increase vaccine coverage. As you can see, as vaccine coverage increases, the red dotted line, disease incidence decreases over time, the blue line. It clearly highlights the delicate balance between perceived benefits and risks of vaccination. And now you note that this balance is linked closely to vaccine acceptance, as we've heard from others. And you can see when vaccine coverage decreases because of loss of confidence, outbreaks happen. And we heard earlier about the measles outbreak that we all experienced. Next slide, please. Vaccine development is a long and challenging process, often lasting many years and involving the combination of both public and private partnership. Operation Warp Speed was a huge success as COVID-19 vaccine continues to work incredibly well. Most importantly, safety is carefully evaluated at every step of vaccine development, even after the vaccines have been licensed and implemented. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. The safety monitoring that has been conducted by the CDC has been historic, and it was needed because of the pandemic. We have talked about these different groups, and I'll focus specifically on VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. This is the country's early warning system for vaccine safety. Everyone needs to appreciate that anyone, the public, providers, anyone can submit a vaccine experience to VAERS. But it is important to understand that VAERS does not identify causality. Rather, it is a signal detection tool, and it's valuable in that way because then it can be explored in more depth. Next slide, please. Did I lose my slides? Are my slides projecting?
Sorry, we're working on it.
Thank you.
All right, looks like they're having some sound issues there, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break and pivot. Time right now is 1:59, just about to be 2 o'clock. We'll be right back in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back. It is just past 2 o'clock, so it's time for another check of your forecast. Here's Majestic Storm.
Well, good Friday afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Majestic Storm, and let me just say, today is the last Friday of summer, and boy, is it going to feel like it. We're looking at a mix of upper 80s, low 90s, that high humidity, the high heat. It is feeling like summertime, not just today, but even into tomorrow for our Saturday forecast. Not a lot of rain, though. Now, the rain chances over the next couple of days, they're low, but they're not zero. We'll talk about that, but we're also concerned about a drought monitor. Our drought monitor gets updated and released every Thursday, so we have new information, and it's really just confirming that, yeah, we do need some rain, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot ahead. We are keeping a close eye on the tropics, though. Gabrielle still not expected to be a concern or a threat across the United States. Yesterday, it was hot. I was able to get outside, walk my dog. It was enjoyable, but after about 10 minutes, it did feel hot. We topped off at 88 degrees. Today, we are forecasting 90s, so it is Friday. We are holding on to a beautiful forecast, but a hot forecast. So maybe you're heading out to the lake today. It would be a good lake day. Here's how the rest of our Friday plays out. Again, seeing a nice mix of sun and clouds. We'll stay really mostly dry, and then those temperatures are going to feel hot throughout the daytime hours. And then as we're heading into those later evening hours tonight, maybe you have Friday night football games. Plan accordingly. It's going to get a little sticky out there because we're not cooling a lot overnight. By tomorrow, we'll be waking up to another gorgeous day for our Saturday. By Sunday, mid-80s, and then next week we'll start out rather warm, but then eventually by the end of next week we'll start to see those temperatures drop down into the upper 70s and low 80s, but it's going to take a little while. We're seeing a lot of trends coming in. We're always watching trends as to what we're seeing now, what's coming up when it comes to temperatures and when it comes to precipitation, and really across the country, the Climate Prediction Center is saying that really most of us, we need to be prepared for a warm warm end to the month of September. This takes us into next week from September 25th through the 29th. So yes, very warm conditions. We need some rain. If you still have a yard that you're trying to keep alive, or grass, gardens, flowers, whatever it may be, you're going to need to water it over the next few days because it's going to be hot, and really those rain chances, they're not looking too great. Rather, we have lots of sunshine today across the Carolinas, and really here's our precipitation over the next 10 days. Notice hardly any opportunity, but we could see an uptick as we're heading into Thursday and Friday. Let's slow things down. I want to walk you into our futurecast. So here's 2 o'clock this afternoon. Still nice conditions, just rather warm. Just make sure you're prepared for the heat. 3 o'clock this afternoon as we're picking up those kids after school. Send them out to play. It could even be a good day where you turn on the sprinkler, let them run through. If you want to go wash your car, it'd be a good day as well, because we really just don't have a lot of rain that could ruin that nice car wash. Tropical storm Gabrielle is still out there. It is continuing to slowly strengthen, so continuing to move northwest at 12 miles an hour. This is looking like this could be our next hurricane as we're heading into Sunday and into Monday as it intensifies, but notice how far away it is from the United States. So best news for us, we'll have to see what impacts it does bring to areas like Bermuda. Our next wave, though, we're starting to see another wave form off the coast of Africa, and you can see the National Hurricane Center has over the next 7 days a 20% chance for something to form out of this. So we'll keep a close eye on that for you as well. My 7-day forecast, it is Friday. It is beautiful, sunny skies, 90 degrees. Tomorrow morning we'll wake up around 65. Another nearly 90-degree day. Remember, 20% chance for a stray shower for Saturday as well. Sunday, the Panthers are at home. Mid-80s is going to be nice, and then fall comes on Monday. Have a great weekend.
That was our majestic storm with a beautiful weekend forecast, especially for those going out to the Panthers home opener on Sunday. So lots of other things to get to. We're going to take it a little bit further out to the University of Notre Dame, where multiple governors are having a forum. It's called Pragmatism Over Polarization, with Governor Spencer Cox from Utah. He's a Republican, and Governor Michelle Grisham from New Mexico. Of course, a really interesting conversation, potentially, given what has just happened in Utah with the murder of Charlie Kirk. This discussion being about keeping that polarization out of politics and seeing how we can go from here. So let's take a listen in.
We found the light and we found our way through it, and I believe we can do it again. Thank you.
Governor Lujan Grisham, what gives you hope?
Well, after that, I don't know that there's anything left except you wore those socks because you didn't have these gold boots. And I'm going to get him a pair. I really am. What size are you? About an 8.5?
8.5. I'm 11. Wow. Just
I'm not. You're barely taller than I am. And I'm 4'9". I use humor, as you can see. I can't help it. But you laughed. I can see smiles on your faces, even though none of the things we're talking about, including the horrific act of violence that we are all impacted by. This country has no room for that political violence, and that all by itself, again, can be enough to shutter a democracy, to make us feel like we can't move through it. It's another example where in an instant it all goes away. But when I hear you speak, and frankly, when I heard you on national TV, reminding us that we have each other, because it's very easy. You know, unlike this conversation, we get 30 seconds to talk about really hard issues that require some explanation or some effort to make sense out of something terrible that's happened in the country and our state, and you don't really get it. I know that we can do more of this. I know that you'll do more of this. I know that families have had enough. And I believe that we can get off social media. I'm working to ban cell phones in schools. Thank you. It's like gerrymandering, it isn't going to solve the problem with the internet, but it's going to create space. We need more space to like each other and respect each other, to not think the worst of each other, but to find the good. And I'm going to dedicate the rest of my very short-lived elected career to just that effort. I got about a year left. And then each of us have to keep doing the work. You know, we've also let this notion of retirement, oh, I'm done. That's the next generation. And I do think if you look in the hearts and hear the voices of young Americans, it will, in large part, re-inspire you. But I'm inspired just by American families all day long. Now, when we really need each other, we always show up. If Utah needs me for a fire, New Mexico shows up. When I need this governor, he shows up. I don't have to ask him. He just shows up. We call each other. When things are great, with a big high five, and when things aren't so great, with I'll do whatever you need. These relationships can build other relationships. You can forge relationships. I'm going to encourage you, and then I'll be done. Talk to someone who has different views than you do. Listen to them. Be open-minded. Try to understand. And I have not done enough of that in my political career. And so I'm dedicated to making time and room for more of that. Take a hike. Go for a walk. Do things with people. We don't do well in isolation, and part of these issues are symptoms of being incredibly lonely in this country. And so I'm inspired by getting to come to a place like Notre Dame, where people are outside and walking around and very excited. I'm so sorry you won't be there. I'm going to have a beer for you. He doesn't drink beer. But I feel like I should be having beer. These are hopeful moments. Cherish them. Build another set of those moments tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor Lujan Grisham. Thank you, Governor Cox. Here in Notre Dame, we talk a lot about our calling to be seekers of truth, sustainers of hope, and builders of bridges. And I want to thank you for seeking the truth, for sustaining hope, and building bridges. Please join me in thanking Governor Cox and Governor Lujan Grisham.
All right, we are ending our time here at this Pragmatism Over Polarization Forum, and I believe we're about to go to, Jeb, is this the Senate talking now about this continuing resolution? Of course, this is really, really important, so let's take a listen in. I know that Democrats are going to have a response to this later on.
Unanimous consent that the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs be discharged from further consideration of S-1337, and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Madam President. Madam President.
Senator from Kentucky.
I object.
Objection is heard. Senator from Virginia.
Madam President, I first ask unanimous consent that floor privileges be granted to Anel Galvez, Radhika Prabhu, and Jacob Baldus for the duration of their legislative fellowships.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to discuss the Democratic continuing resolution proposal that was on the floor earlier. Neither proposal gained sufficient votes, and that means we have work to do to find a compromise that will enable government to stay open. And I want to make clear why I believe the Democratic proposal has some real strong merit for Virginians and for members of this body, both Democratic and Republican, and why I think it's such a strong proposal. And my advocacy for the Democratic position is basically focused on two issues: health care and the underlying basic notion that we all get that a deal should be a deal. During August, I think, as most of us did, I traveled around my home state of Virginia a lot and talked to many people. The Senate had passed the reconciliation bill, that partisan bill, in July, and during August recess, I heard a boatload from Virginians about their concerns. Because of that reconciliation bill, 6 hospitals in Virginia are at risk of closure. These hospitals are all in the rural parts of the Commonwealth. 302,000 plus Virginians will likely completely lose their health insurance. 136,000 will lose the health insurance that they're currently able to access through the Affordable Care Act, and another 166,000 will likely lose health insurance because of cuts to the Medicaid program. Virginia has a population of about 8.5 million. 302,000 people losing their health insurance is pretty significant. Those who continue to have health insurance will see significant premium increases. According to the State Corporation Commission, which is the body in Virginia that regulates industries like insurance companies, the 10 insurers that participate in the Virginia individual market in 2026 have requested rate increases from their 2025 rates, with most insurers proposing average increases of 20% or higher. What would that mean? The Kaiser Family Foundation says a family of 4 with 2 adults age 50 and 2 kids under 21 are likely to pay an additional $311 per month, or $3,729 per year, because of the reconciliation reduction of ACA tax credits. Virginia stands to lose up to Virginia hospitals stand to lose up to $26 billion in Medicaid cuts over the course of the next 14 years because of the reconciliation bill. And that is the reason why a number of rural hospitals that are sort of on the edge in terms of their financial situation are on a list of concerns about closure. And Madam President, just within the last 2 weeks, we actually had the first closures in Virginia. A well-respected healthcare network in the Shenandoah Valley that has a hospital in Augusta County, but then has primary care clinics sort of throughout the region that serve patients who can be served there instead of the hospital, announced that 3 of the primary care clinics are closing, and the CEO of the healthcare network said closing because of the Medicaid cuts made in the reconciliation bill that this body passed in July. I also heard a lot of stories just from individuals. These are the statistics about what is going to happen in Virginia because of the reconciliation bill, but we talk to constituents all the time. Mary from Springfield, Virginia, in Northern Virginia, and Kim from Mecklenburg County on the North Carolina border both have children with disabilities who rely on Medicaid for access to care to allow their children to remain in their homes instead of in institutional settings. These moms are very worried that Medicaid cuts won't be available for their children's long-term care. Brenda is a mother in Salem, Virginia, near Roanoke. She relies on Medicaid to help her remain in her home and not have to be institutionalized, and she worries that the Medicaid cuts will cost her access to the supports that she needs. William in Virginia Beach, Virginia, on our eastern coast, says that his son has marketplace coverage, but is worried that the cuts to the ACA premiums mean that the son will no longer have access to that insurance now that the reconciliation bill has put those premium subsidies on a path to expiration. Maria works as an employee of Affordable Housing Community for Seniors in Fairfax, right here in the D.C. area. And she said that since the passage of the reconciliation bill, she's seen a growing number of low-income seniors come into her office frightened that their Medicaid coverage will be reduced or terminated. Sharon lives in Lancaster County, which is in a part of Virginia called the Northern Neck near the Chesapeake Bay, and she's called to ask my office if Rappahannock General Hospital was in jeopardy of closing due to the reconciliation bill. Rappahannock Hospital, a facility I know well because my in-laws lived right there in Lancaster before they passed away in the last couple of years, is one of the 6 hospitals that is listed on national lists as a hospital in jeopardy as Medicaid cuts phase in. And then finally, Caroline from Lynchburg, Virginia, in Central Virginia, has had coverage through the Virginia Marketplace and is concerned that she'll no longer have access to the tax credits and subsidies that have helped her afford health insurance. These are just 7 examples of citizens from all over the Commonwealth who the reconciliation bill, I read the big statistics about it, but these are individual families who have significant challenges. What the Democratic CR proposal does is something that many Republicans in this body have said needs to be done, that in the aftermath of the reconciliation bill, we're hearing similar stories from our constituents, and that we need to fix especially the ACA premium support so that people do not lose health insurance. And we also need to fix some of the Medicaid cuts that cause the concerns that I've expressed from these 7 individuals. My visit around Virginia in August sort of made me see this health care concern as sort of a spectrum. When you make cuts to Medicaid or to these premiums, 5 different things happen. People lose health insurance. Those who retain health insurance see their premiums go up, often because the folks without insurance go to the emergency room. That's more expensive care. It has to be paid for, and that tends to assist in driving up the premium cost of those who retain insurance. Third, as I indicated, has already happened in Virginia, providers close. And when providers close, there's a 4th effect, which is people lose their jobs. And then the 5th effect is one that I think we should talk about as well. It's not just people losing health insurance and having their premiums go up and seeing their providers close and seeing healthcare professionals lose their jobs. There is a 5th effect. I was a mayor and I was a governor, and I did a lot of economic development work in Virginia. And I know that one of the things that businesses really care about if they're looking for places to locate or expand is what is the local availability of health care. It is really difficult to be in a community and try to pitch an economic development project, but have the question asked, tell us about your hospital, tell us about your health care network, and to explain that we had a hospital but it closed, or we've had health care clinics that close. That makes it very, very difficult. This 5th effect is an economic effect. The decline in healthcare clinics and hospitals actually is sort of like a theft of a community's future, because it makes it very difficult to get people to come. And so that's why I think the Democratic proposal is a solid one. And I do recognize that in the aftermath of the passage of the reconciliation bill, many Republican colleagues, both in this chamber and the House, have said that it is important to come back and fix particularly the expiration of the ACA premium tax subsidies. And I think that would be a very smart thing for us all to do. Finally, Madam President, there's a second reason I really like the Democratic proposal, and it is this. A deal should be a deal. And the Democratic proposal has some components in it that would ensure that when Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate reach a deal that goes to the President's desk and he signs it, that the President then can't immediately take the money away unilaterally. I think everybody around my Commonwealth, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or the vast majority that don't really care that much about politics, they get that a deal should be a deal. When you negotiate and you shake hands, a deal should be a deal. And this actually is related to health care as well. In last year's budget, we had a deal about spending on health care priorities. Early in this administration, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., announced that he was clawing back billions of dollars of health care funding. To Virginia, it was $400 million. $400 million of health care funding that we had planned on using during the worst increase in measles, for example, in recent years, got clawed back from Virginia, and $500 workers and contractors lost their jobs as we were trying to deal with measles and other health epidemics. I have communities in Virginia who had economic development projects announced, and they were counting on them for their future. And often the announcements were attended with great fanfare by our governor, Governor Youngkin, who was a Republican, who believed these economic deals were good things, and they were reliant upon funding from the Inflation Reduction Act or from the CHIPS manufacturing bill. But those funds, in many instances, have been clawed back. A deal should be a deal. When we reach a deal, it should be honored, so that communities do not plan for healthcare workers, do not plan for economic development projects and feel the rug pulled out from under them. And so those two features of the Democratic proposal, fixing some of the healthcare cuts in the reconciliation bill that even by many Republicans' accounts have gone too far, that have already led to closures of clinics in Virginia and great anxiety among individuals. We can fix those, and we can establish a principle that should be one that we would all too far, that have already led to closures of clinics in Virginia and great anxiety among individuals. We can fix those, and we can establish a principle that should be one that we would all agree on, that a deal should be a deal. I hope as we grapple with the two proposals on the table, neither of which were able to get 60 votes and be passed, we can take some of the wisdom in these Democratic proposals that would serve Democrats, Republicans, independents all over this country and make sure that we include them going forward. And with that, Madam President, I yield the floor.
All right, you've been listening into some responses from Democrats, most recently to the continuing resolution that was passed. Of course, Democrats not happy with this. This was passed by the GOP-controlled House, 217 to 212. One Democratic senator voting yes and two Republicans voting no. So hearing some responses there from a Virginia Democrat who is talking about impact potentially on the healthcare system. And we know we're going to get some more responses from Chuck Schumer, minority leader later on. So we're going to take a quick break and come back out to that with some continuing coverage. Stick with us. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. We're following some big breaking news out of Washington, of course, at the Capitol, where they're trying to pass a continuing resolution to avoid a government shutdown by October 1st. Now, the House did pass a GOP-led bill, but the Senate rejected both plans, both from Republicans and Democrats, really leaving the next steps here uncertain. You've heard from Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, talking about his concerns. I know that we have some sound from other Democratic leaders as well, so let's listen into that.
Until October 1st. If there ever a sign that the Republicans wanted a shutdown, that's it. Now, our bill, of the two bills, our bill was the only bill on the floor that got a majority of those present and voting. Theirs did not, ours did. Donald Trump would rather shut down the government than even talk to Democrats about lowering the cost of health care for Americans, which is what is our goal. And Republicans, unfortunately, sadly, dutifully obeyed. Senate Republicans just voted to shut the government down with a partisan bill that gives Donald Trump everything he wants and nothing the American people need. Donald Trump says he doesn't want to talk. He's still in the go-to-hell mode. His marching orders are to Republicans are don't even bother with Democrats. That is not governing. That's a recipe for a shutdown. And the American people know it. Well, neither bill was able to pass. The theater must end. Let's sit down and negotiate. Now that it's clear that neither bill will get the 60 votes that the Senate needs, it's time to negotiate. The theater must end. The last 4 years, when Democrats were in the majority, we didn't have a shutdown because we always worked with the Republicans. We knew we needed their votes. When Democrats had the majority, no shutdown. Republicans have the majority. They seem to be headed for one, but we hope and pray that they will now see that the only way to avoid a shutdown is negotiate with Democrats, which is how we've always done it. We have only a week left. We're saying clearly, let's sit down, let's figure this out. But Republicans have now left town with no sign they want to avoid a shutdown in a week. They left town. Donald Trump is the shutdown president, and Senate Republicans are following him over the cliff. The stakes are real. A shutdown is devastating to Americans. Democrats are doing everything we can to sit down and negotiate. We do not want a shutdown. Our position has never changed. We need bipartisan legislation to keep the government open and meet the needs of the American people, especially on costs, specifically health care costs. But until Republicans break free from Donald Trump's grip, they're dragging this country straight into another shutdown. We remain ready to work together to fund the government and implore Republicans to come to the table. Patty.
Well, and Amy has to fight, so she's
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Chuck. And I hope people noticed that the vote that got the majority, that had the higher numbers, were actually our proposal, because so many Republicans didn't show up today. Not show up when the American people are seeing their premiums skyrocketing, when in fact the president over and over again has told the public the last few weeks they don't need Democratic votes, can go it alone. Well, we're not going it alone because we are standing with the American people. You look at what happened here with the ACA healthcare tax credits before they expire, more than 20 million Americans for the Affordable Care Act tax credits are going to see their premiums soar. Because of the big, beautiful betrayal of the bill, we've seen Americans lose their health coverage. We see rural hospitals already shutting down. And what we're asking them to do right now is to negotiate, to come to the table, to talk to Senator Schumer, to talk to Senator Murray, like they have always done, and to not shut this down. It's on them. And of course we're going to stand with the American people. I don't know who they're talking to when they go home, because the people I talk to, I'm going to nearly finish my 87-county tour of Minnesota next week. The people I talk to, they're like, what is going on here? This is not what I signed up for in the rural areas. So that's what this fight is about.
Thank you, Amy. And I must say, I do 62 counties every year, and I'm not even
How big are your
finished. And she's already at 80. She's ready to do 87, is it?
Yes.
Listen, every single senator had a very simple choice. Vote for a bill to responsibly fund the government and address the healthcare crisis. Republicans chose to sit on their hands or not even show up, rather than lift a finger to address the healthcare crisis they themselves created. People in my state are going to get letters in the mail next month letting them know that their premiums are set to skyrocket next year. Hospitals in my state are already closing and laying off staff, and around the both in my state and around the country, because of these Republican health care cuts. To the American people, Democrats are fighting to repeal the cuts, to lower your costs, and to save your health care. To my Republican colleagues, inaction is not an option. If you want Democratic votes, you need to work with us. Compromise is a very basic principle every American understands. And if Republicans don't bother working with Democrats just because Donald Trump said so, it will be a Republican shutdown. Republicans control all of government. The House, the Senate, the White House, the American people know who to blame. The bare minimum here is for Republican leadership to simply sit down with Democratic leadership to hammer out a path forward. Now they're leaving town instead of sitting down with Democrats to lower health care costs and stop our hospitals from closing. Leader Thune, I am asking, keep the Senate in session so we can hammer out a deal to keep government open and prevent Americans' premiums from skyrocketing. We should choose a better path. We should fund the government, fix health care crisis, and avert a Trump shutdown. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Schatz.
I'm still a little flabbergasted that they couldn't generate a majority for their own proposal, and that we're just over a week from a potential government shutdown. And I am more than a little flabbergasted that the House just decided after a 6-week recess to take another recess and come back after the end of the federal fiscal year. Just now, Republicans voted to jack up health care premiums for millions of Americans, and the choice was very simple. We either work together to extend these tax credits and save millions of Americans from losing their health care, or Republicans can go it alone, and people are going to get these letters in a matter of weeks saying, your subsidies are gone, and you're going to pay $200, $300, $400, $500 more per person per month. This is not an abstraction. This is not an allegation. This is not a political talking point. This is what is going to happen to millions of Americans in blue and red and purple places all across the country. And what we're saying is that this is avoidable. What we're saying is that people are about to experience an intense amount of financial pain and probably lose their health care. And we just want to fix this. So Republicans need to come to the table and negotiate with us. That's the way to pass a bill.
Senator Booker.
So here's the thing that we all know in this room is that most Americans are not following the backs and forths of what's happening in Washington. What most Americans, unfortunately, right now are concerned with is that they're struggling with economic pain. Prices are going up on everything from groceries to child seats. Prices are going up on everything from energy costs to health care. There are a lot of Americans who may not be following what's happening between Democrats and Republicans in Washington, but they know that their lives are becoming more difficult, that they're finding it harder to make ends meet, and there's a lot of fear about not just the health care cuts that have already happened, but the impending doom of health care cuts that are about to happen. And so Senate Democrats are simply standing together here in the Senate. And we're saying we're going to stand and fight for the things that Americans care about. They want their elected officials, be they Republicans, Democrats, or independents, to do something about the pain that they're feeling, to do something about rising costs, and to do something about the challenges Americans are facing in the millions and millions in losing health care and losing access to health care. And so that's what we're doing right now. We want the Republicans to stay in town and sit at a table and negotiate and work with us to do something about the mounting concerns of so many Americans. Right now, Republicans are leaving town when there is work to do on the issues that Americans care about.
Thank you, Boyd. Just to repeat again, the fact that the House adjourned till October 1st, that shows you it's clear evidence that they want to shut down. We don't. Yes.
Do you think that your decision in March to basically not get much in return for avoiding a shutdown then, made it easier for them to make this play call now and say, let's just do a straight CR and make them eat?
Absolutely not. First, as you saw, the only bill that got a majority of those voting was our bill, not their bill. But second, the world has totally changed from March. First, people have seen the damage the Republicans are doing. The reconciliation bill just decimated health care. Tariffs are now in effect and raising people's costs. Their costs are going up left and right. So they're very, very unhappy with what is happening. Second, we Democrats had plenty of time to be prepared. Our message has been the same for the last 2-3 months, which is we need health care. We need to restore Americans' health care, and we need to get down their costs, and we don't need them to break the law and undo anything the Appropriations Committee did. And third, we have seen the unlawfulness of the Trump administration after March, with the rescissions, with the impoundments, with the pocket rescissions. So the world's a different place right now. Yes?
What's your plan now that this bill is failed?
We want to sit down and negotiate. I think it's clear when you look at the votes on the floor of the House, or the Senate rather, that a negotiation is the only way to avoid a shutdown. We want to do it. So far they don't. We hope they change their minds. Yes?
The president feels like he's pretty comfortable with his position here because you all are asking him to add something to his CR. Why do you seem also very confident that Republicans are going to be the ones who are blamed for this?
Absolutely.
You are taking the votes against a continuing resolution.
No, the bottom line is that they, by not negotiating, are causing the shutdown. And that is plain. And as I said before, when we had the majority, we negotiated with them, there was no shutdown. They're in the majority, they don't negotiate, they cause the shutdown, plain and simple. And what they did today by adjourning the House October 1st, it's becoming clearer and clearer to Americans, they want it. Yes?
Yeah, so sure, a lot of the complaints from the Democrats today sound very much like the Republican complaints in 2013 heading into that shutdown. They were insisting on negotiations over health care. They wanted to roll back the ACA. Obama said he wouldn't negotiate. We ended up with a 60-day.
Here's what's different. They were taking something away. We're trying to restore something that they took away. It's a world of difference when you're trying to do some good from people rather than doing negative stuff for people. Okay? Yes?
Why can't you negotiate these health care provisions after, separate? Yeah.
We've been asking for months to do it. Why not do it now? People are hurting. Jobs are being lost. People are getting notices that their health care premiums are going up. People are losing health care. Do it now. There's no reason not to do it now. Let's do it now. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, gang, leader speech coming up in just a minute.
Oh.
Yeah. I guess we're setting up. We have to reset. Reset. That's why the students.
All right, you were just listening in to some leaders from the Democratic Party talking about the effort to get this continuing resolution passed. We are about a little over a week out from the deadline that would lead us to a government shutdown and still not one officially passed. I know the House passed a GOP-backed continuing resolution that Democrats had some big concerns about, particularly with health care. However, the Senate did not pass either the Democrat or Republican response, keeping with those same concerns about what happens to people's health care. So I believe this clip, the Republican leaders are going to come in. I know we're waiting for, Speaker Johnson at some point too. But let's take a listen in and see what they have to say.
I think you've heard from the other side already, but clearly we had a couple of votes today, neither of which succeeded, but this isn't the last vote that we're going to have on keeping the government open. There will be an opportunity for Democrats to vote on a bill that has already passed the House of Representatives, that when passed in the Senate can go to the President's desk and fund a continuing resolution to keep the government open and give us another 7 weeks or so to complete the appropriations process. We think that's the right way to do this. There were 13 such opportunities the Democrats had when President Biden was in the White House, where we did short-term, clean, continuing resolutions. The suggestion by the Democrats that somehow they ought to be able to hijack a continuing resolution to attach $1 trillion of policy and cut things that we just funded a short few weeks ago, like rural hospitals, is completely out of any sort of historical context of what continuing resolutions have been used for in the past. The CR is simply a means to an end. It is a way to fund the government until you have an opportunity to do the appropriations process. We've said all along, we want to have an appropriations process that restores and returns to what the Senate used to do, and that is have bills marked up by the Appropriations Committee, reported to the floor, where they're open to an amendment process, and members from both sides can have their voices heard. The Democrat leader, Senator Schumer, is accustomed to writing bills in his office behind closed doors. That's not the way we think is the best way to operate a government and the best way to keep our government agencies funded. So we're prepared when we get back to have a vote on a bill already passed by the House, ready to be signed by the President. All it takes is a handful of Democrats to join the Republicans in keeping the government open and funded, and to ensure that we have a chance to get the appropriations process completed in the way in which it was intended in the first place. Senator Barrasso, we'll let him, the whip, talk a little bit about it.
Well, Republicans want to keep the government open, and the Democrats, based on what I believe is the Schumer strategy, is a shutdown strategy. It is their goal to shut down the government. The left wing of their party is demanding it, and Chuck Schumer is snakebit. He's afraid to do anything that they won't want him to do. So things he wrote about in a letter in 2023, a Dear Colleague letter, said it has to be bipartisan. Well, the bill that passed the House today is bipartisan. Republican and Democrat alike voted for this bill, and we now have it in the Senate. It's something that can easily be passed, but what Schumer wants is $1 trillion for just 4 weeks of a continuing resolution. What we have is a continuing resolution for 7 weeks to give an opportunity for the appropriators to put their bills through the process, bipartisan appropriations process, to keep the government open. Chuck Schumer is driving this shutdown strategy. The Democrats are ready to shut down the government. Republicans want to keep it open. Sure.
Think about where we were the last time there was a CR to keep the government open, and Chuck Schumer voted for it. What happened? The radical left attacked Chuck Schumer, and now today he has yielded to the radical left that seeks a government shutdown. Republicans do not want to shut the government down. It's the radical left who have co-opted Chuck Schumer, bending to their will to put us in a position where we could have a government shutdown. I'm very proud of what Leader Thune has done, something that Schumer had not done, going all the way back to 2018, is he allowed appropriated bills to be on the floor and passed on the floor of the United States Senate, something that Schumer did not do when he was majority leader. We want to return to regular order, allow the Appropriations Committee to work through its process, give us the time to complete that process, and it will do something in terms of restoring the faith of the American people back in this institution, and that is allowing the committees to do their job, get the bills to the floor, and pass timely spending bills, and avoid a government shutdown.
Senator Sheehy. I asked Leader Thune to give me a chance to say a couple comments as a brand new freshman here, seeing how this place works. My two primary focus areas have been wildfire and national defense. And as a result of that, I've witnessed firsthand what Senator Schumer and his team have done in the historic blockade of our nominees, and going full resistance. And the first time ever we've had 0 nominees via voice vote unanimous consent. And this new shutdown strategy, the continuation of that, where we are robbing the American people from the opportunity to have a fully functioning institution here to process qualified nominees to run critical agencies within our government, things like wildfire suppression, and obviously things like our military, as we try desperately to reform our acquisition processes to keep up with China and other adversaries. We are being denied the appointed individuals to do so. They've set an unprecedented record on obstruction of those nominees, and now the shutdown is an extension of that. So we are witnessing unprecedented obstruction in this institution. Somebody's only been here a few months. It's unfortunate to see when I know there are many partners in SNL that want to be working with us on this, want to be constructive on keeping the government open and bringing nominees in, but they know that they have to fall in line with Chuck Schumer's strategy here. So it's unfortunate to see, but we're the party of common sense right now that's trying to pass common sense legislation to keep the government open, keep our nation strong, keep the economy growing. So that's the message here. Bottom line, we're trying to get problems solved and move forward.
Questions quickly? Yeah.
The Democrats and Republicans have said that in the next week there are going to be conversations about the path forward. Are there going to be Are you going to be a part of those conversations, or are you just saying you're just going to do the House bill when you get back again?
Well, I mean, I don't know what those conversations. They have something that they want to bring to us and talk about. Then, certainly we're open to talking. But like I've said before, I've been available now for weeks, and the Democrats seem more intent, as has been pointed out, in satisfying, I think, their very leftist base, who is desperately wanting to see a government shutdown because they think it's politically advantageous to do that, rather than keep the government funded. I mean, it's going to be it's really a straightforward choice. And it's the same choice the Democrats have been, that we were faced with when they had the majority and Biden was in the White House on 13 different occasions. All 13 times there were Republicans who delivered the votes to keep the government funded. We didn't take it hostage or hijack it to try and do some colossal list of liberal, wish list type priorities and policies that added up, as Senator Brasso said, to about $1 trillion. So I don't know what that is. I have not gotten the sense that they are serious at all when they say we want to negotiate. If they were, they would come and say we want to negotiate. They sent a letter 6 weeks ago by snail mail, which to me doesn't suggest they're serious. And the bill that they put on the floor makes it very clear they are very unserious. I mean, they want to repeal the entire one big beautiful bill, and including all the provisions in there that we think benefit a lot of constituencies like the ones we represent, like rural hospitals in places like Wyoming, South Dakota, and Montana. Yep.
Senator Murkowski, who voted against this, I'm curious, you had 2 no votes. What do you make of those? And also, she had suggested that something that she wants to see in the bill is an extension of those ACA tax credits, subsidies. Is that something that you would consider putting in this bill? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, to quote a Democrat from a past CR conversation, continuing resolutions aren't places to load big health policy changes in. I think that we are open to the conversation about what we do with the Obamacare premium tax credits. That's something in which members, Republican senators, and I think for that matter Republican House members, have an interest as well. But this isn't the place to do that. This is the place to fund the government, to allow our appropriations process to continue. That issue is, those changes occur January 1 of next year, and there's certainly an opportunity between now and then to have a conversation about what, if any, reforms we might be able to make when it comes to that issue, or any others for that matter Democrats want to consider or contemplate. And we got a defense authorization bill that's waiting to be voted on, which they've held up. Again, for no apparent reason that I can tell. Everything has to be, we're clear on our side, we're ready to vote. So there's plenty of stuff to do on the agenda, including that issue, but this is not the place to do it, and it just never has been.
Where is the place to do it?
Well,
before the end of the year?
I think that when we get to the point where we're actually, if we're going to, totally fund the other agencies in the government, and we get the 3 appropriation bills that have already cleared the Senate floor into conference, hopefully done, give us that additional 7 weeks after the end of the fiscal year to get some of these other appropriations bills that are available for consideration, that are out of the Appropriations Committee, on the floor and considered, and then we can have that conversation, that broader conversation, when it comes to the full funding of the government for the fiscal year, And there will be other, year-end vehicles, as there always are. I mean, there's always health care extenders that we end up doing at the end of the year. So there'll be legislative vehicles available for this. But I don't know why you would take hostage a 7-week continuing resolution to try and do $1 trillion of policy. This is just, it's unheard of. It's not serious. And they can't make that argument with a straight face.
This basically did happen in 2013 when Republicans refused to do a short-term CR because they wanted to defund the Affordable Care Act, which was $1 trillion issue. Did Republicans make a mistake back then? Did you learn any lessons back then? Because, it does seem like Schumer is kind of taking that same strategy and saying, hey, I want to have negotiations. Back then, Obama wouldn't negotiate with you. You were very frustrated. We ended up with a 16-day government shutdown, accomplished nothing. What's your sense of looking back at that?
Well, I think that is one of the lessons you learn, Steve, from past experience. And when you're the ones who are trying to add a whole bunch of new stuff, generally, I think you're the ones who end up getting blamed when there's a shutdown. And I think, again, what you're going to be looking at when push comes to shove about 10 days from now, and we actually have to have the vote on the bill that would keep the government open, is you got a bill that's passed the House, a bill that the President's prepared to sign, and that there will be plenty of Republicans voting for, and we'll need a handful of Democrats in order to keep the government open. So if they want to use this as an opportunity to add a whole bunch of other stuff, they're the ones who are going to have to explain why, because we won't add $1 trillion in new spending, they're willing to shut the government down. I mean, I think it's kind of as straightforward as that. But we've learned, there are some lessons you learn from experience. And interestingly enough, there's a quote from Chris Murphy in 2013, around that time, in which he said that this is not the place to do major health care policy. This is a continuing resolution, and I can get you that quote. But, the shoe's on the other foot now, and they're trying to use what they think is leverage to get a bunch of stuff done that's never going to happen. I mean, can you imagine anything in that bill that they sent that we voted down today passing in the Republican House of Representatives? Absolutely not. It's just not serious. They're not being serious. This is not a serious negotiation. This is a just cold-blooded, partisan, political attempt to try and score political points with a left-wing base that is demanding that their Democrats here in Congress oppose and resist anything that President Trump is trying to do. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, you were just listening into both the Republican and Democrat before that response to the effort to get this continuing resolution passed. Of course, it did pass the GOP continuing resolution in the House, but it is held up in the Senate. They rejected both the Democrat and the Republican versions of that. So has big implications as we approach October 1st, which would be the deadline for a government shutdown. So really important story here. We're going to keep following that. But first, we're going to take a break and see what else we've got going on after the break. It is 2:57. We'll be back around 3. Stick with us. All right, it is approaching 3 o'clock here in the Live Impact studio, but almost Friday, almost to the week, or it is Friday, almost to the weekend. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, of course, for people that are going to go to the Panthers home opener. So let's get another check of your forecast with Majestic Storm.
Well, good Friday afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Majestic Storm, and let me just say, today is the last Friday of summer, and boy, is it going to feel like it. We're looking at a mix of upper 80s, low 90s, that high humidity, the high heat. It is feeling like summertime, not just today, but even into tomorrow for our Saturday forecast. Not a lot of rain, though. Now, the rain chances over the next couple of days, they're low, but they're not zero. We'll talk about that, but we're also concerned about a drought monitor. Our drought monitor gets updated and released every Thursday, so we have new information, and it's really just confirming that, yeah, we do need some rain, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot ahead. We are keeping a close eye on the tropics, though. Gabrielle still not expected to be a concern or a threat across the United States. Yesterday, it was hot. I was able to get outside, walk my dog. It was enjoyable, but after about 10 minutes, it did feel hot. We topped off at 88 degrees. Today, we are forecasting 90s, so it is Friday. We are holding on to a beautiful forecast, but a hot forecast. So maybe you're heading out to the lake today. It would be a good lake day. Here's how the rest of our Friday plays out. Again, seeing a nice mix of sun and clouds. We'll stay really mostly dry, and then those temperatures are going to feel hot throughout the daytime hours. And then as we're heading into those later evening hours tonight, maybe you have Friday night football games. Plan accordingly. It's going to get a little sticky out there because we're not cooling a lot overnight. By tomorrow, we'll be waking up to another gorgeous day for our Saturday. By Sunday, mid-80s, and then next week we'll start out rather warm, but then eventually by the end of next week we'll start to see those temperatures drop down into the upper 70s and low 80s, but it's going to take a little while. We're seeing a lot of trends coming in. We're always watching trends as to what we're seeing now, what's coming up when it comes to temperatures and when it comes to precipitation, and really across the country, the Climate Prediction Center is saying that really most of us, we need to be prepared for a warm end to the month of September. This takes us into next week from September 25th through the 29th. So yes, very warm conditions. We need some rain. If you still have a yard that you're trying to keep alive, or grass, gardens, flowers, whatever it may be, you're going to need to water it over the next few days because it's going to be hot, and really those rain chances, they're not looking too great. Rather, we have lots of sunshine today across the Carolinas, and really here's our precipitation over the next 10 days. Notice hardly any opportunity, but we could see an uptick as we're heading into Thursday and Friday. Let's slow things down. I want to walk you into our futurecast. So here's 2 o'clock this afternoon. Still nice conditions, just rather warm. Just make sure you're prepared for the heat. 3 o'clock this afternoon as we're picking up those kids after school. Send them out to play. It could even be a good day where you turn on the sprinkler, let them run through. If you want to go wash your car, it'd be a good day as well because we really just don't have a lot of rain that could ruin that nice car wash. Tropical storm Gabrielle is still out there. It is continuing to slowly strengthen, so continuing to move northwest at 12 miles an hour. This is looking like this could be our next hurricane as we're heading into Sunday and into Monday as it intensifies, but notice how far away it is from the United States. So best news for us, we'll have to see what impacts it does bring to areas like Bermuda. Our next wave, though, we're starting to see another wave form off the coast of Africa, and you can see the National Hurricane Center has over the next 7 days a 20% chance for something to form out of this. So we'll keep a close eye on that for you as well. My 7-day forecast, it is Friday. It is beautiful, sunny skies, 90 degrees. Tomorrow morning we'll wake up around 65. Another nearly 90-degree day. Remember, 20% chance for a stray shower for Saturday as well. Sunday, the Panthers are at home. Mid-80s is going to be nice, and then fall comes on Monday. Have a great weekend.
That was our Majestic Storm there with the forecast. Beautiful weekend that we have ahead of us, but some other important things that we're keeping an eye on. I know the big story that everyone's curious about is Jimmy Kimmel being removed from the air. He's been indefinitely suspended after some comments he made about the murder of Charlie Kirk on his show a couple days ago. So our Nick Sturdivant interviewed a professor from Elon University about all these questions that we've had about the First Amendment and where that applies. So let's take a listen in because this was a really, really interesting interview.
So we want to get to a major story, a story that broke yesterday afternoon that is continuing to generate comments from both sides of the aisle, quite frankly. We're talking about the show, the late night show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and this comes after Disney, ABC, indefinitely pulling Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air after pressure from the Federal Communications Commission over his comments about the death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And look, this story has brought up questions regarding the First Amendment, free speech, and we want to bring in Professor Israel Balderas, Assistant Professor of Media Law and Ethics at Elon University. Professor Balderas, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Nick. I appreciate this.
Let's talk about it. So again, there's a lot of talk about free speech, the First Amendment specifically. I think people have a vague knowledge of it. Can you explain the First Amendment and what it means?
Absolutely. You know, when it comes to the First Amendment, right, it gives us the freedom of expression in a society that is free. And in order for us to live freely with each other, the First Amendment protects a fundamental right, right? The United Nations recognizes freedom of expression as a human right. But the First Amendment applies when the government tries to take away your speech, right? That is the whole purpose of the Bill of Rights under the Constitution. So when people talk about, I have a freedom of expression, yes, in a free society, we want to hear all voices. We want to be tolerant of all voices. But the question is, when you have a claim of free speech, does it apply to everyone or does it apply when the government is involved? And in this case, the government is not involved directly. Certainly Disney is a private corporation, right? They have the power to decide what is or is not appropriate content for their TV stations, as opposed to the government saying this is not allowed in the airwaves. And I think right now what we're looking at is the former and not the latter.
With that being said, what are the protections surrounding the First Amendment?
Well, the protections, we've got five rights, right? We got religion, we got speech, we got press, right? I'm a former television journalist. I love freedom of the press. We got right to assembly. We got right to petition our government for redress. But the issue always involves, what does free speech mean? In a free society, that's a pretty broad standard. But when it comes to this case, specifically with Jimmy Kimmel, right? Jimmy Kimmel works for a corporation, and Disney was pressured, yes, at first, by the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, who earlier this week, he went on air and said, look, what Jimmy Kimmel said on Monday night, which was mischaracterizing the intent of the individual who's accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. Many took issue with that. The question is, for TV stations that aired that specific broadcast, are they serving the public interest of the broadcast when those kinds of words were uttered on Monday night? And Disney pulled his show because two big companies, Nexstar and Sinclair, told Disney, we're not going to air Jimmy Kimmel anymore. That becomes a market power, not necessarily government censorship.
With that being said, how do you teach this and break this down to your students? You're talking about a younger generation of voters. Again, a younger generation. How do you break this down to your students and teach this to your students?
You know, today what I'm going to go into the classroom, I'm going to say, guess what? This question about whether or not Jimmy Kimmel has a First Amendment claim against Disney, it's going to be in your midterm exam. Why is that? Because students are paying attention to what's happening. And I'm telling you, Nick, every day, like the front page of the New York Times writes my curriculum, right? Because every day seems like there is an attack on the First Amendment. But the first thing I always say is, it's good for you to defend your freedom of speech. The question in a free society is, how much are you willing to defend the speech you don't like for someone else, right? And to me, when I tell them about the First Amendment, I always tell them about the great philosopher Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, because Uncle Ben told Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Now, you and I know that comes from Voltaire, but nonetheless, right, freedom of speech is a right and a responsibility, and the students understand that in order to protect the speech that I care about, I got to protect the speech that I might necessarily not like, even speech sometimes that is hateful, contrary to what Attorney General Pam Bondi said earlier this week, which she was wrong as a matter of law and as a matter of fact. The First Amendment protects hate speech. A lot of young people don't like to hear that. However, when you have the government deciding what is or is not hate, then they begin to see why the First Amendment matters.
Hey, can you talk a little bit about that? It sounds like that's the conversation you're having in the classroom. Also, that obviously that's what you're teaching. But can you talk a little bit more about the conversation you're having there in the classroom and the reaction from your students as you're starting to have these conversations?
Absolutely. I got to tell you, listen, at the beginning of the semester, I started with one philosophy of the First Amendment, and that is I got to teach my students about what does it mean to be free in a free society. But a lot of things changed last week. The murder of Charlie Kirk was devastating, not just for a free society, but for people who really defend the First Amendment. And the first thing I told my students last week in class is I said, you have to understand something. Charlie Kirk was assassinated for speech. Period. End of the sentence. Anything that follows after that. You may not like what he stood for, you may not like what he believed in. However, it doesn't matter. The First Amendment doesn't look at the content of what people say. What the First Amendment cares about is individual expression. And so therefore, for the last week, we've been talking about what does that mean? Freedom. Because freedom is much different now, Nick, than it was just a few weeks ago. And now we're seeing the effects of what happens when people say things. Over the weekends, you and I probably know people that got fired from private corporations because they said things that the corporation didn't like. Down in Charlotte, the Carolina Panthers fired someone for posting social media. Now, my students think, well, that's not fair. Okay, you're correct in a free society. However, a corporation has every right to fire people if they say things that in some way embarrasses the corporation. But the First Amendment really is important when it comes to government action. Now, in this case, certainly the FCC did threaten Disney. Brendan Carr said on a radio show, look, Disney, you can either do it the easy way or the hard way, right? You can either take care of your own or we'll take care of it for you. That's a bit of jawboning. That's when the government forces a private entity to do something that they can't do directly. However, you know, there's this theory about the First Amendment, and that is that the marketplace of ideas matters in a free society because the truth and the falsehood of claims do battle in the marketplace of ideas, and we believe that here in a free society, the truth will prevail. In this case, Nexstar and Sinclair, who owns TV stations that have ABC licenses, they felt that for them to serve the public interest, they could not air Jimmy Kimmel anymore. And look, those were market forces. Is that a lot of power by a corporation? Absolutely. But that's a different issue. We've been having consolidation, media consolidation, for years and years. It is a concern under the First Amendment, and now people are starting to see the First Amendment is first among all the other rights because this matters. Freedom matters. Individual expression matters. And so therefore, I think more and more people are paying attention. And I would say that my students are the best because they really understand that to be a communication professional today, you got to defend the First Amendment no matter what.
Yeah, there's a conversation happening not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. And it's a conversation we wanted to bring here on Live Impact News. Professor Israel Balderas, Assistant Professor, Media Law and Ethics at Elon University. Professor Balderas, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for being so generous with your time.
My pleasure, as always. I used to be a television anchor reporter in Charlotte. My heart is still down there at the Queen City. Queen City.
Look, we'll have to have you come in studio one of these days when you're down here.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but Elon University and Queen University are now in partnership, so I may come down there and visit you more often nowadays, Nick.
Good point there. Yeah, we look forward to it. Professor Balderas, again, thank you for your time. Have a great day, sir.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right, that was our Nick Sturdivant interviewing an Elon professor about the First Amendment coming out of this Jimmy Kimmel News, where he's been removed from air. Taking a turn, though, now to Oh gosh, Jeb's gonna make me talk about football again. Here it comes.
Football's biggest fan, Julie Kay.
I'm doing my best. I'm really trying. I'm really doing my best. The Super Bowl, that I do know about, they're having their official kickoff event in San Francisco with some San Francisco leaders, the NFL commissioner, they're all there talking about it. I want to know who's doing the halftime show. I don't know that that's what's going to happen here, but crossing my fingers.
It's at the SF Museum of Modern Art. So art, Super Bowl halftime show, it could be a match made in heaven.
Could intertwine. I'm hoping for the best. Let's listen in.
You know, they're all singing together. Like, it's amazing for me to see that. And I'm like, oh my God, like there's a fan base that goes well beyond this country, and they're passionate. And so I think I look forward to seeing how far that global
we get the
expansion
Irish
goes.
up first, but then we come back. And it was, I think you're referring to that game, particularly in Germany, where I think it was in Munich, and Tom Brady was actually playing it. And he told me after the game, he said, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my career. Now that's a pretty good career, by the way. So, right? And it was literally 40 minutes after the game. Sweet Caroline kept playing, and they just kept singing and singing. And it's again another way to bring people together and just enjoy that moment and honor those communities, which I think is really important to do.
We'll make sure we play that for you at some point this weekend.
I love it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. All right, Jed. You've been a part of many, many memorable moments. I remember a few over the last couple of years, of course. Is there a story from a time in the league that captures the spirit of the Bay?
Well, I mean, I think Super Bowl 60 will.
That's the
do
right
that.
answer. Yes.
But when I look back to Super Bowl 50, right, when Daniel decided to take on this very, very difficult role that you're in now, he made the pitch and the effort that this was going to be the most philanthropic Super Bowl. And those are things that matter. I mean, the commissioner, I don't know how many games you go to a year and you're traveling all around. I mean, you see it like 49ers want to win every time we play. Right? Like, we're not going to win every time we play. Like we can't control that. What you can control is the impact that you bring to a community and to a society. And again, you saw it last year in New Orleans. You see it every year at a Super Bowl. But to us, when you can see an impact, not just in the moment, but then a decade later, and see that impact is still there and still ringing. And when we are now getting ready to make over fields and do different things and make different investments throughout the entire community, you know, the first school that we redid the field, you know, Martin Luther King Middle School, that's where my wife taught for 4 years in San Francisco. There's just so many cool things like that a kid may never, ever play in the National Football League, right? But the National Football League is going to make their experience better, and that's something that you just can't put into words. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling to know that your impact can have a legacy much, much longer than when that game actually takes place.
And it became personal for you. I remember when we had that conversation about MLK Middle School, and you told me the story about your wife teaching there, and it meant something to you, and you'll remember that for a really long time. Those are the things, you're right, are absolutely special, and the things that are important. Okay, to close us out, little rapid fire. Just one question, though. In one word, Mayor Lurie, we're going to start with you. You gave me a hard time, so I'm going to give you a hard time now. So, in one word, what
you
does...
You messed up my first name.
I know, that's true. I have nothing to say. So, in one word, what does Super Bowl 60 mean to you for San Francisco and the Bay Area?
Opportunity, a golden opportunity.
Well,
I know, but she
he started with opportunity. Okay, Commissioner Goodell.
Celebration.
Good one. Jed, bring us home.
Impact.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to all of you. I had mostly fun up here. Thank you.
I think you're going to hear this for a few months.
I think I might. I think I might.
Oh, no, it'll be a debt. He's still giving me grief from 10 years ago. So 10
Keep it
years,
coming.
Super Bowl 70. We'll talk again.
Don't tell my husband about Super Bowl 70.
Zaylene, you have to close us out and tell us a little more about the Innovation Summit, because I walked in here, I was excited about the announcement, but that it's happening here at SF MoMA and combining all three things, you got to give the pitch
Yeah.
one more time. I know we saw the film, but...
Yeah, no, let's do it again. So Commissioner Goodell said this, for the first time ever during Super Bowl week, we will have the Bay Area Host Committee Super Bowl 60 Innovation Summit. It will be right here at the SF MoMA. And the most amazing thing about that, Chris, is how you started us off, which is it is a fusion of art, sport, and tech, and something only really the uniquely Bay Area, right? You can bring those three things together. And to make it even cooler is that we're doing it with Acquired. So it's going to be an amazing event. The NFL is excited. We're working on a really compelling program right now, and I'm hoping everybody here can join. So it's going to be awesome. Now, to really close us out, I'm going to call up the president of the 49ers, Al Guido.
All right, two things. One, a thank you and a call to action. A thank you. Mayor Lori brought this up. This does not happen without the public and private support. I think Roger will attest to this, or Commissioner Goodell will attest to this. 4 years ago, I sent a letter and a bunch of stuff over to the NFL. I got my hand slapped because that was not the process to go about embarking on trying to get another Super Bowl 10 years removed from the one that we just did. But it was so important to our region to pull this off. We all know what COVID meant and what that did to our region. What Daniel talked about a little bit was not just his support and what's changed. Senator Badia's office here, the entire Bay Area caucus signed a letter, did a video, did everything remotely possible to make sure, to ensure that we hosted 10 years after Super Bowl 50. So a massive thank you to all of those people. On the private side, we have already signed up hundreds of millions of dollars of support in putting this on. And what does that mean? You heard Jed refer to the fact that Super Bowl 50 was the most philanthropic Super Bowl ever. This one will top that. And in addition to it, it will deliver hundreds of millions of dollars of economic impact into a region that so desperately needs it, as we know all do. And lastly, a call to action. It takes a village to pull this off. Thousands and thousands of workers, whether San Francisco to San Jose to Oakland to the rest of the Bay Area and to Santa Clara. Everything above zero compounds. Whether you can volunteer, whether you can be a partner, a sponsor, and support our efforts, whether you're in the public sector and things that you can do legislation, we need everyone to do this right. Not just so that we put on a great game. Not so that the two teams just have a wonderful experience. And I like to think I'd love to be one of those teams participating in it. So that, as Jed referenced, people like my daughters, who are 16, 14, and 12 years old and a part of this community, will have something to look forward to, hopefully in 10 years after this one where we get to host the next. Thank you all very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And with that, I'd like to welcome Chris back up to the stage for some photos. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening in to the official kickoff of the next Super Bowl in San Francisco. We heard from the NFL commissioner and some leaders in San Francisco. We did not hear who will be performing the halftime show. I was waiting with bated breath, but we'll have to come back next time. We're going to take a quick break and come back with some more headlines. Stick with us. All right, we are back in the Live Impact Studio, 3:25 on the clock, and heading to some more national headlines. Our Secretary of War Pete Hegseth paid tribute to U.S. military prisoners of war and personnel missing in action today during a ceremony in the Pentagon's parade field. So I know we have that pulled up. Let's see if we can take a listen in.
Secretary of War Hegseth, sir, thank you for the honor of having me. We are grateful for your steadfast leadership of the department and for your energy you put towards making our warfighters the most lethal in the world. And to the many distinguished visitors here today, thank you all for coming. I know that there's a former POW in the audience, as well as families of POWs and service members missing in action. We are grateful to have you with us. There are so many moving stories to tell today of courage, strength, sacrifice, and of the incredible efforts made to locate and recover those service members still missing. I'll highlight just one. This past June, we finally laid to rest a man who grew up down the road from my tiny hometown in Iowa. His name was Army Corporal Melvin Huff. Melvin enlisted right out of high school in 1943 and became an aerial gunner on an A-20 Havoc, a versatile bomber capable of delivering intense offensive power. As gunner, Melvin's job was to defend the crew's rear, or 6, with the 50 caliber machine guns mounted on the plane's dorsal turret. On January 20th, 1945, he and his crew were attacking enemy defensive positions in the jungle near Cape Wam, Papua New Guinea, when his unit lost contact with the plane. Corporal Huff and his teammates were missing until late 2022, when a dive team from Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency recovered his remains from a swamp near Wam Village. Melvin was identified in the summer of 2024 and finally brought home this past June. He is now buried back in Iowa Falls, Iowa, in his hometown. But there's a second layer to Melvin's story. Melvin's mother, Florence, and father, Klebler, did not have anyone knock on their door to let them know their son had died. They did not get to hear the story of his sacrifice. They did not get to bury Melvin. Instead, they worried, hoped, and anguished for years. They prayed every night for him to return, even after the Army presumed Corporal Huff to be lost. After Florence and Klebler passed, Melvin's sister, Edith, continued to wait, never quite at peace. She was 94 when she heard the news that the wreckage from Melvin's plane had been found. Finally, the question that haunted her family for a generation was answered. So today we remember our teammates who were held prisoner or missing in action. We are grateful for their service and sacrifice. And we also remember the families and friends who spent years, like the Huff family, waiting for their father or brother or son to come home and fill the empty seat at their dining table. Many are still missing their loved ones and still waiting for news until everyone comes home. Again, thank you all for being here. This will defend.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
Welcome on this beautiful and fitting day. We're gathered here to commemorate National POW Missing in Action Recognition Day. Today we honor those who were held as prisoners of war and those still missing in action. It's a A day when we can tell those who are here and those who have not yet returned, you are never forgotten. I'd like to first spend a moment remembering our nation's former prisoners of war. These men went through the fire of war and captivity and emerged on the other side. While we will never know all that they endured, we give them our deepest respect, honor, and gratitude. We're fortunate enough to have one of them here today, serving as a living, breathing example of the warrior ethos at its best. Rear Admiral Robert Shoemaker spent over 8 years as a POW in Vietnam. He actually coined the phrase, the Hanoi Hilton. Please stand up and be recognized for your bravery and service. Thank you, Admiral. I hope someday my kids and grandkids come to understand what that would take. The sheer courage, the fortitude it would take. And most Americans, I can't fathom. But we have such men. And may we always honor and recognize them. Thank you. We also want to recognize the families of those who went missing in action. Your Gold Star families who have sacrificed and carry a heavy burden. Miss Jeannie Huffman is one of those. She was just 5 months old when her father, Navy Commander Edward James Jacobs Jr., went missing off the Vietnam coast in 1967. I had a chance to meet her just moments ago. She gave me her father's bracelet. This year, she designed our National POW MIA Recognition Day poster, a copy of which is on your program. On the poster are a Marine and 4 Army ROTC cadets from Old Dominion University. They're in period uniforms, all pointing in one way or another, binoculars, compass, radio, all pointing to the way home. All of the cadets are here and represent the future of the warrior ethos. Welcome to all of them. And to Jeannie. Jeannie, if you would stand, please. Thank you very much. We have combat veterans here today as well. You have a unique perspective. You all served alongside those who went MIA, shoulder to shoulder, and you long for your brothers in arms to return home. Thank you for your service and your unfailing devotion. And thank you to the ambassadors and defense attachés that are here today as well. Your partnership and cooperation with other nations helps ensure we find and recover our warriors in far-flung nations. I've met many of you, and that persistence and dedication on the ground ultimately is what culminates in these returns and these remains. At the Department of War, we are working every day to restore the warrior ethos. And one of those elements, core elements of the warrior ethos, is I will never leave a fallen comrade. It is our sacred duty to uphold that ethos and ensure that we return, whenever possible, and until the end, every fallen hero. There are nearly 81,000 MIA who never made it back home. World War II, Cold War, Korean War, Vietnam War, the Persian Gulf Wars. Many of them were prisoners of war as well. And it's our mission to deliver a final answer to the families who lie awake asking God for the return of their loved one. Again, most of us cannot imagine. It's our mission to return them to American soil and provide a final resting place here at home for the heroes who fought for their country. It is our commitment to you that we will work unceasingly to bring our warriors home, and we will never forget their service and sacrifice. The department's agency that's primarily responsible for that sacred mission is the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. It is their sole objective to provide the fullest possible accounting for our missing personnel and their families and the nation. Using painstaking historical research, exhaustive on-the-ground excavations, and those advanced forensic science techniques, the DPAA is steadfast in its accounting for missing Americans, no matter how far away, no matter how long ago. Earlier this year, because it was one of our priorities, I had the opportunity to visit one of the DPAA's forensic laboratories. And I was floored by the dedication and the talent of their over 700 military and civilian professionals. Again, Americans working quietly in far-flung places to keep the promise we made to these troops. While I was there, DPAA's identification of the 100th service member identified from remains turned over by North Korea in 20...
All right, you've been listening to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth honoring prisoners of war and missing in action soldiers. We are going to take you to something that we have live right now. Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic candidate for mayor of New York, is speaking live. Let's listen in.
18-year-olds and 17-year-olds could pre-register to vote, a vision that brought us a glimpse of what this future could be. And now what we present is a willing and excited partner in City Hall to work together hand in hand to finally deliver that vision to each and every New Yorker that calls this city their home. Thank you so much.
We'll take questions for all three legislators. Thank you so much. Katie, go ahead.
I wanted to ask the Majority Leader, and for you, Senator Mamdani, what's your take on Jay Jacobs, and do you have full confidence in his ability to lead the Democratic Party here in New York if he's not going to support the Democratic, I know he lives on the island, so I guess what does he care, but I'm just curious if you still have confidence in his ability to represent the maybe changing Democratic Party here in New York?
Well,
And if you
again,
could step up to the podium, please.
okay,
Thank you so much.
certainly. As far as Jay Jacobs is concerned, he serves at the pleasure of the governor. I would think that as the head of the party, the state party, he should endorse the nominee. But again, you know, whatever he feels he should do. But quite frankly, I'm here because I and so many believe in this young man who will be the next mayor. So whatever Mr. Jacobs wants to do, it's fine. I'll tell you, in terms of us in the Senate, we have been, in many ways, able to navigate, sometimes without the help of the state party. So we get it done, and that's what's going to happen. We'll get it done.
Do you think the governor should remove him?
No, I mean, this is up to the governor.
Would you tell her? I mean,
I would not tell her. No. I would not tell her.
That covers it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and we're going to keep going with on-topic questions. Yeah, Morgan. You, Senate Majority Leader, do you support having universal child care,
Yes.
free buses, and do you support raising taxes on millionaires and corporations to pay for this? And if so, are you also worried that, you know, next year the Senate and the Assembly are going to be having to deal with potentially federal funding cuts, maybe having to raise taxes on millionaires and corporations just to pay for those funding gaps, not necessarily the programs? That's a lot for this.
It was a lot, Morgan, but I'm used to a lot. And quite honestly, all those things you talked about, we have really pushed, whether it's universal daycare, pre-K, you know, we understand that affordability is the key. So we have tried over and over again to make sure that New Yorkers have what they need. We put, you know, millionaires tax in our one house budget every year. We understand that people are having a tough time, and we are trying to figure out the everyday things they do and how we can help make it easier. That being said, you know, we cannot replace the billions and billions of dollars that New York stands to lose because the federal government is disinvesting in the people of this nation. And that's what's happening. And so, by the same token, as we work to make things more affordable, people need to understand that right here in New York, there are Congress people that could stop a lot of the things that we are going to experience. And the pressure needs to be put on our Congress people to make sure they understand the millions that will lose health care, the millions that need affordable housing, the millions that depend on a strong economy so that they can, you know, so don't get me started, but we'll do what we'll have to do. But what I always say about what happens in Albany is that we are all at least rowing in the same direction. None of us are confused about what our priorities on behalf of the New Yorkers should be.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Just right here, we're going to go Annie, City and State. Thanks.
Hi there.
On similar question, do you anticipate building support for those like tax and the wealthy among your upstate colleagues who might not see direct benefit from the bus fares around here? How much is that going to be a stumbling block next Senator?
Well, as I said, I think you've seen. Yeah, okay, go closer. Okay. I'm really privileged to work with an incredible group of senators who, to a person, is a public servant. And there are many things that we have done in our historic run, because we've had now the longest Democratic majority in the history of the state, which again isn't that long, but I always remind people that the Republicans had it for the better part of 100 years. We've managed to have it almost going on 8. But the reason why we've been able to maintain that leadership is that we speak to each other, we understand that we represent the entire state, and we try and find the things that collectively will benefit all New Yorkers. Sometimes it's more impactful in one area than another, but we always try to address all of the areas so that no one feels left behind. And that again is why I'm so confident that a Mayor Mamdani, who understands that, will be a partner in making sure whatever we do, we're doing with the whole in mind. And yes, there will be some places that will benefit with one thing more than another, but the reality is with a comprehensive strategy of committed public service, everyone will benefit.
Yeah, Henry, right here.
Yeah. Okay. So were you going to add something on that?
Oh, no, I just want to...
for you, Mr. Mamdani, I have to ask you about what just happened at a mosque in Jamaica, Queens, where Mr. Cuomo arrived and was heckled from coming into the door all the way into the sanctuary, continued all the way through and all the way out the door. Subsequently, his campaign and he accused your campaign of orchestrating that. Your response to that, but also, even if you deny that, which I imagine that you will, what are you saying to your supporters? I realize you can't control everyone who might be a little overzealous to the point where they end up heckling in the sanctuary, in the prayer room of a mosque. Does that go too far?
No, we did not orchestrate this protest. However, I think that the governor is asking the wrong question. I am proud to have visited more than 60 mosques myself over the course of this campaign, and I encourage Governor Cuomo to visit as many as he can, especially in light of a record of leading the state where he couldn't name even one that he attended. And the question he should be asking is, why are so many Muslim New Yorkers infuriated by his belated arrival to meeting with the community? And the answer is a record of engaging in Islamophobic rhetoric, a campaign where he sought to paint myself as the first Muslim Democratic nominee in the history of this city as someone to be feared, as someone to be understood more in the language of an animal than in the language of a person, and someone he has to reckon with the fact that in this moment in time he is having to answer for his decision to voluntarily join Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's legal defense team. And I know that that is something of immense concern for not just Muslim New Yorkers, but New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. And I think that it is time to treat Muslim New Yorkers as we would treat any New Yorker, with the consideration, with the engagement, and the respect as to the concerns of a community that have often been ignored at best, even though of a city of 8.5 million New Yorkers, about 1 million are Muslim across these 5 boroughs.
But does it go too far for those bearing the name of your campaign, whether you sent them or not, to go into the prayer room to send that message?
What I want to make something very clear, which we've said publicly time and again. The bearing of the name of our campaign, t-shirts, clothes, hats, these are things that have been created by many across the 5 boroughs. We haven't actually sold any merchandise over the course of this campaign. And what I would say to all New Yorkers is to be respectful, and to engage with politics, but also to ensure that there is room for the engagement of those sacred spaces. However, I do also think that the governor needs to answer these larger questions at the context of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, right here.
Hey, Senator, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I wanted to get your take on Jay Jacobs. Could you tell us just your reaction to some of his actions and thoughts? And what do you think it says about the Democratic Party that he would rather resign than endorse you? And lastly, what is your role, if any, in trying to bridge some of this divisiveness?
You know, I am excited to be standing here next to Majority Leader Stewart Cousins, soon-to-be Borough President Hoylman Siegel, as we build a coalition that continues to expand. And that is so much of what is critical in this moment for our Democratic Party, to ensure that we are building a tent that can not only win elections, but can also reflect the concerns of so many who for so long have lost their faith in the democratic process. I think it is hard to fully understand a party chairman that looks at a campaign that has won a primary with the most votes in New York City history, that has made the top 3 voting age demographics all below the ages of 35, and has increased turnout, especially amongst the very Asian voters that we were told we were losing to Donald Trump's right-wing movement less than a year ago, and say this is a step too far. It's a coalition that we're building that has room for everyone, and I think that someone who cannot see that is out of step with the future that we need to be building, not just for this party, but for this city and for this state.
Now, you had previously called on him to resign, I believe. I think you even circulated a petition. Should the governor get rid of him?
You know, I leave that to the governor. I am quite clear in my thoughts, and I think it's important to look at the leaders of this party today, the majority leader, the speaker of the assembly, the governor, the controller, and see that there is a unity in purpose, a unity in campaign, and a unity in an agenda for working class New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and beyond.
Yeah, we'll go right here.
David, here, one. Can I ask a question? Obviously, you're Muslim, and Cuomo was on a mosque and make a community for Juma. My question was, are you concerned that Cuomo and Adams have been going to mosques lately, trying to cross some votes? They've been trying to use social issues like statutes on sex work and transgender issues. What's your response to that?
I encourage Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams to go to as many mosques as they can over these next few weeks. And I encourage that because as candidates to represent the entirety of the city, we need to meet with New Yorkers, be it at mosques, at churches, at synagogues, at temples, wherever they engage with the world around them. I think the sadness that I have is that it took this moment for many of these candidates, most especially Andrew Cuomo, to even consider going to a mosque. If it wasn't for the fact that he'd been beaten by a Muslim candidate by 13 points in the Democratic primary, he wouldn't be standing in a mosque, looking at a note card, stumbling over the words, Assalamu alaikum. That it took this long is a reflection of the fact that he looks at far too many New Yorkers as not belonging to the very fabric of this great city and this great state.
What about Eric Adams? He's been highlighting that, like I said, those two social issues towards that community.
You know, I am so proud of the support that we continue to receive from Muslim New Yorkers. I had one Muslim New Yorker come up to me at Jummah prayers today, and he told me that he had lived here for decades, and today he had decided to register to vote. One of my closest friends from high school told me that his grandfather from Montenegro told him that after more than 40 years in this city, he now wants to participate in this democracy. And that excitement, that enthusiasm, as the majority leader speaks about, it's part of what really generates a sense of hope in our future. And I welcome any candidate engaging with the community as they should engage with every community.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more. Melissa, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Melissa.
How are you?
Good.
Two things. Cuomo said press briefing after being shouted out of the college that the Muslim community does not believe in the Muslim constitution. He said, quote, it's abhorrent to the Quran. And he said that you don't want Muslims to understand your true position. And the second point is just for any Jewish voters who are concerned about your views or criticisms of Israel, can you tell us why you believe, I know you talked about disagreeing without being disagreeable, why do you believe that your relationship with New York City's Jewish community is preferable or better
Well, there is a basic decency at the heart of this. He led the state for more than a decade. He couldn't name a single mosque that he visited. This is someone who is called the first Muslim candidate to be the nominee of our party, a terrorist sympathizer, someone who has had a super PAC send out images of myself artificially lengthening my beard, someone who has trafficked in the same kind of Islamophobia that has become a fixture in political life in this country. And this is not an intellectual concern for me. You know, I speak to you today, Melissa, a day after a man was arraigned in Queens for having made threats on my life, my wife's life, my family's life, my friend's life, threats to blow up my car, which I do not own, threats to... He said that he hoped an IDF bullet would go through my skull and that I would be murdered. I mean, it continues on and on and on. And in a climate such as this, to use the language that he has used, it's not just about me. It's about the fact that when I go to a mosque and I ask the congregants, who here has had their last name intentionally mispronounced by someone at their workplace? The hands shoot up. Who here has been refused the basic decency of being able to be themselves, believe in Palestinian human rights, and not be smeared and slandered? And there are so many who understand that struggle. And so that is what pains me so much, is not what it means for me, but what it means for Muslims at large. And, you know, to have this same governor cite the Quran, this is a man who just learned how to say Salam Alaikum. I mean, there is no desire for me other than honesty with any constituent that I deal with, to tell them about my own positions. And it is offensive to have someone try and describe it in any other way. When the question of legalizing prostitution has never been one over the course of this campaign or of any campaign. And finally, to your question about a relationship with Jewish New Yorkers, I have been so thankful for the many meetings I have had with Jewish leaders, elected officials, rabbis, and to understand the fact that there is a wide variety of a Jewish community across the 5 boroughs. And I'm proud to be leading with Jewish voters in this race, to have received the support of so many Jewish voters in our primary, and also the responsibility that I have, not just to those that support me, but to anyone that considers this city their home, that it is my job to protect Jewish New Yorkers, and my job also to ensure that Jewish New Yorkers, it is made clear to them that it is not just a question of respecting or protecting or tolerating, it is also a question of celebrating their belonging in this city. And I say that also as I wish them Shana Tova, with the high holy days coming up, and this moment, not just of Rosh Hashanah, but Yom Kippur, where I know many Jewish New Yorkers will both celebrate as well as reflect. And I think that our city would do well to learn from that same approach to life across these 5 boroughs.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to have to go. Thank you, guys.
All right, you were just listening to Zohran Mamdani. He is the Democratic candidate for mayor of New York City. He held a press conference and answered some questions about all sorts of topics, a lot of them about his opponents, including Andrew Cuomo. So we're going to take a quick break and only a few more minutes left before we head to our 4 p.m. newscast, so stick with us. All right, we are back in the Live Impact studio just for a few more minutes. It is 3:56, so we're getting close to our 4 p.m. newscast where we'll have updates on all those local stories and national stories that we've been talking about for the last few hours here. We're going to get one final check of your forecast with Majestic Storm before we head to that.
Well, good Friday afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Majestic Storm, and let me just say, today is the last Friday of summer, and boy, is it going to feel like it. We're looking at a mix of upper 80s, low 90s, that high humidity, the high heat. It is feeling like summertime, not just today, but even into tomorrow for our Saturday forecast. Not a lot of rain, though. Now, the rain chances over the next couple of days, they're low, but they're not zero. We'll talk about that, but we're also concerned about a drought monitor. Our drought monitor gets updated and released every Thursday, so we have new information, and it's really just confirming that, yeah, we do need some rain, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot ahead. We are keeping a close eye on the tropics, though. Gabrielle still not expected to be a concern or a threat across the United States. Yesterday, it was hot. I was able to get outside, walk my dog. It was enjoyable, but after about 10 minutes, it did feel hot. We topped off at 88 degrees. Today, we are forecasting 90s, so it is Friday. We are holding on to a beautiful forecast, but a hot forecast. So maybe you're heading out to the lake today. It would be a good lake day. Here's how the rest of our Friday plays out. Again, seeing a nice mix of sun and clouds. We'll stay really mostly dry, and then those temperatures are going to feel hot throughout the daytime hours. And then as we're heading into those later evening hours tonight, maybe you have Friday night football games. Plan accordingly. It's going to get a little sticky out there because we're not cooling a lot overnight. By tomorrow, we'll be waking up to another gorgeous day for our Saturday. By Sunday, mid-80s, and then next week we'll start out rather warm, but then eventually by the end of next week we'll start to see those temperatures drop down into the upper 70s and low 80s, but it's going to take a little while. We're seeing a lot of trends coming in. We're always watching trends as to what we're seeing now, what's coming up when it comes to temperatures and when it comes to precipitation, and really across the country, the Climate Prediction Center is saying that really most of us, we need to be prepared for a warm end to the month of September. This takes us into next week from September 25th through the 29th. So yes, very warm conditions. We need some rain. If you still have a yard that you're trying to keep alive, or grass, gardens, flowers, whatever it may be, you're going to need to water it over the next few days because it's going to be hot, and really those rain chances, they're not looking too great. Rather, we have lots of sunshine today across the Carolinas, and really here's our precipitation over the next 10 days. Notice hardly any opportunity, but we could see an uptick as we're heading into Thursday and Friday. Let's slow things down. I want to walk you into our futurecast. So here's 2 o'clock this afternoon. Still nice conditions, just rather warm. Just make sure you're prepared for the heat. 3 o'clock this afternoon as we're picking up those kids after school. Send them out to play. It could even be a good day where you turn on the sprinkler, let them run through.